They say roommates teach you about yourself. Mine taught me to listen for the second whistle at 1:13 a.m. Before we sink in, tell me in the comments where you're listening from, what time it is, and who's awake with you tonight. I love seeing our late-night map light up. Back in late September, I moved into a narrow, sun-starved house on Alder Street with 3 other people and the hum of the fridge for company. Classes had just started. The air smelled like dry leaves and detergent. We had a tiny porch, a crooked mailbox, and a hydrangea that bloomed one last time and then gave up for the year. The rent was nearly fair, split 4 ways. My room faced the alley, which meant morning light arrived as a gray guess. I liked the quiet. I liked the simple routine. Wake early, coffee, campus, work-study, home by dusk. Most nights the house clicked and settled like it was remembering who lived in it. On the lease with me were Harper, a nursing student who color-coded the calendar on the pantry door, and 2 people I knew enough to trust, Jess, who did shifts at the wellness desk, and Mallory, who could talk a room into energy even when the lights were low. The first week felt like we had rented a small piece of adulthood, and no one had noticed. We ate pasta in chipped bowls, learned the rhythm of the shower, and took turns between the washer and the long, patient clothesline out back. We joked about the porch light that worked only if you told it please. Every house has a rule you learn by tripping over it. Ours did not announce itself. It showed up as small things you only see after the fact. On the 3rd night, I came home to find the hall closet ajar by the smallest measure. An inch, maybe less. A thin bite of dark between door and jamb. I nudged it shut with my foot and thought nothing of it. In the morning, it sat open again. Same inch. I figured one of us grabbed a broom after I went to bed. Houses have habits. They open. They breathe. I told myself that while the kettle sighed. When I met Harper in the kitchen, she was labeling a jar of rice. She saw my eyes on the closet and laughed. Don't worry. Everyone forgets to close that one. It sticks. She said it kindly. Then she added something smaller, like a leaf dropping. Just don't leave the pantry light on. Why? It hums, she said. The ballast keeps Jess awake. Rules of a place show their face as favorites and grudges. Pantry light off, hall closet catches, shoes on the mat. Mugs go back on the second shelf because the first one leans. That evening, Jess and I folded laundry on the living room rug. She told me which bus line never came on time and the trick to the back door lock. Gentle, ordinary talk. The TV glowed on mute with a weather loop. From the kitchen, the fridge hummed under everything like a steady hand on the small of your back. Have you heard it? Jess asked. Heard what? The whistle. It's nothing, just the heating vent. It does this 2-note thing at night. She smiled at herself. I'm not superstitious. It just happens. When? She checked the microwave clock without meaning to. If I notice it at all, it's after 1, she shrugged. Old house. I slept early that night, the way you do when a day leaves you hollow and clean. Somewhere around 1, I woke to the softest sound. Not a ring, not a pitch from outside. 2 notes, close together, like a tiny kettle someone forgot on a far burner. Then quiet. I stared at the ceiling, counting my breath, waiting for the heater to kick again. I told myself it was air. Sound moves through ductwork like a rumor. Morning unstitched the question. Classes swallowed my attention. By dusk, I was walking back up Alder Street with grocery bags and a small ache behind my eyes. Inside, the house smelled faintly of citrus peel. Someone had wiped the counters. A folded list sat by the fruit bowl. Milk, sponges, tea. The pantry door was closed. I turned the light on to grab salt. The hum kicked up, a low, sticky note. I turned it off. The quiet felt honest. A soft knock at the front door came while I was stirring onions in a pan. It was Harper's friend from clinicals, dropping off a textbook. Her hands were chapped from sanitizer. The air that followed her inside smelled like the stairwell in a hospital. She waved at me and left. Footsteps, thank yous, door, latch. Normal. Only later did I realize the inch had returned. The hall closet, patient and open. The broom bristle pressed against the threshold as if someone had set it down and then thought better. None of it was a story. Not yet. Just small things sitting in the room like coins on a table. You decide when to pick them up. On Friday, our calendars finally disagreed with each other. Jess worked late. Harper had clinicals before dawn. I tried to keep my world small. My plan was tea, notebook, early bed. Mallory came home with a cloak of laughter from someplace I wasn't invited to. She kissed us on the top of the head and called us hermits. She poured water into the kettle, left the pantry light on, and forgot it as she told a story with her whole body. By the time she remembered the kettle, the hum in the pantry had climbed to a thin whine. She switched it off with a flourish like she had cut the wire to a bomb. "Your precious ballast," she teased Harper's empty chair. Then she dropped onto the couch, breathless. "We should go out in 20. Come on, it's Friday." "I open tomorrow," I said. "Same," Jess said, stacking brochures into a neat fan on the coffee table. Mallory rolled her eyes. "You two are 80. She meant it sweet. Still, her smile had a weight tucked under it. I had seen it once already that week, like she had turned down a hallway and come back with her expression rebuttoned wrong. When she went to her room, the house lost half its noise. I did dishes. The sink gave a tired slurp as the water left. Jess dried. We bumped hips like siblings. "Do you ever get that thing?" I asked. "What thing?" "The feeling someone just left the room." Jess laughed, then didn't. "Sometimes all the time." She traced a ring of water with the towel. "It's probably just us missing dorm noise." We turned off lights one by one. Porch, living room, kitchen, pantry. The hum fell away like a hand lifted from your ear. The hall closet door stood closed. I put my palm on it and felt nothing but cool paint. I slept with my window cracked the smallest bit to taste the weather. A far train horn found its way into my dream. A fox barked somewhere near the alley. The mattress forgave my weight. At 1:13 by the green clock across the room, 2 notes shaped the dark. Soft, close. A whistle that seemed to know my breath, then stillness that felt placed, not accidental. I waited for the heater to answer. It did not. I rolled toward the wall and reached to feel the radiator. Quiet metal. No vibration. My heart made its own idea of a story. I told it to calm down. In the morning, the pantry light was on. I found it by accident, padding in with sock feet and seeing the thin stripe under the door. The hum was steady, but less than the night before, as if the house remembered. I switched it off and stood there listening to the bare, quiet wrap around the kitchen like a shawl. Harper came in and reached for the coffee tin by muscle memory. She saw my face and asked with her eyes. "Light," I said. "I don't remember leaving it." She put the tin down. "It happens. I'm not trying to be weird, but let's just keep it off at night, okay?" "Of course." She added the smallest smile, grateful. "We all sleep better." I wanted to tell her about the whistle. I wanted to be the version of myself who doesn't swallow small details to keep peace. Instead, we filled silence with toast. Saturday lived up to its plan. Books, laundry, a short walk to the corner store for stamps. The hydrangea offered one last brave petal. The mailman nodded like we had known each other for years. That evening, Jess texted that she had to open on Sunday and would be in bed before 10. Harper laid out her uniform on the chair and set 2 alarms. I noticed she put her shoes side by the door with the laces tucked in, a way of saying order helps. Mallory came in late, softer this time, no cloak of laughter, a jacket that smelled like rain and someone else's cologne. She ruffled my hair and called me professor. The word felt like a gold star pressed in the wrong place. "Come sit," I said. "I made tea." She sat. She held the mug like a child holds a warm stone. She did not drink. "What?" She shook her head, then tried to smile. It landed crooked. "Nothing. People just talk when the music stops. Do you ever notice that? Like they need to fill the space and don't care what they pour into it." "Bad night?" "Just night." She put the mug down untouched. "Thank you, though." When she stood, she turned the pantry light on without thinking and left it. I watched the yellow square open under the door again. I turned it off after her footsteps faded. Harper's rule felt like a small kindness we could all give each other. Sleep is a tender thing. I wrote for an hour at the kitchen table. The fridge hummed. The house creaked as it settled into cold. I heard the bathroom fan die as Jess clicked it off. Water ran in the pipes and then quit. From down the hall, a door closed, then opened again, then closed with more care. I smiled in my cup. We were 4 people trying not to wake each other, each one failing in gentle ways. At 12:51, I brushed my teeth and peered down the hall. The closet stood shut. The pantry was dark. The porch light was a polite coin over the front steps. I checked the back door by habit. Locked. The bolt was a small sure sound. I liked that sound. It let the body relax. I left my window open a finger's width and folded my blanket down to my waist. The alley offered up a cat yowl that returned to itself like a loop. I closed my eyes and let my breath find its slow pattern. Then I forgot the room. Sound woke me. Not bright, not cruel. 2 notes, almost sweet, at 1:13. The air in my room felt cooler, like the night had leaned its shoulder against the glass. I listened without moving anything but my attention. The whistle whispered a second time, softer, the shape of it like someone testing a bottle lip. I do not know where bravery ends and curiosity begins, only that they share a door. I slid my feet to the floor, soft, deliberate. I left the light off. The clock made a patient tick at the rate of a resting pulse. My door opened without a complaint from the hinge. The hallway was a tunnel of deeper dark that thinned near the living room where street glow leaked. The air carried a clean scent, something like soap. I stepped toward the kitchen with toes for footsteps. The pantry door wore its thin halo. The line of light along the floor cut across the tile and stopped at the toe of my left sock. The hum was higher than earlier, almost thin enough to vanish. I reached for the switch, then paused. The hall closet sat open by an inch. The inch was exact. Not a shrug of wood. Exact. Someone else might have turned every light on. I chose quiet. I told myself we had 4 people and a sticky door. I told myself the ballast misbehaved. I told myself these sentences like you tell a nervous dog to sit and stay and look at me. Good, good. Then the second note returned. It did not come from the vent. It came from beyond the closet door, small and certain, like air moving across teeth. I felt the hairs on my arms lift, not from fright, but from awareness. I am not ashamed to say I whispered, "Hello?" The way you greet a room you thought was empty. Something on the other side brushed the door. A whisper of fabric on paint. Not a push, not a pull. The suggestion of weight shifting. My hand went to the pantry switch. I turned on the light. The hum swelled. The line of yellow under the door brightened. Behind me, floorboards answered. A soft step from the end of the hall. I turned. It was Jess, hair in a knot, sweatshirt half zipped, eyes soft with sleep. "You hear it too?" she asked. Voice small so it did not disturb whatever we were both pretending was normal. "The whistle," I said. She nodded like I had passed a test she did not design. "It's okay," she told me. "I think it's the vents, or the neighbor's bathroom fan, or I don't know. I just know I hear it when I'm almost asleep. She offered a quiet smile. Do you want me to shut that? She meant the closet. No, I said. Leave it. It sticks. We stood there a moment while the hum pressed a thin line into the air. The house seemed to wait with us, patient and old. Let's go back to bed, Jess said, gentle and sure. If it's important, it will still be here in the morning. I turned off the pantry light. The yellow line disappeared. The hum fell into the floor. We both breathed a little deeper without thinking. In the dim, I watched Jess pad back to her room, the way she placed her feet so as not to speak to the boards. She glanced at me once, a small check that I still stood there. I lifted a hand. She lifted hers back. 2 silent good nights. I closed my door, eased into my bed, and found the warm shape I had left. Sleep did not come at once, but the waiting had no teeth. I watched the green numbers step along. The house settled again. A distant engine whispered down the cross street and faded. At 2:04, something delicate tapped my door. Not loud, not urgent, small. 1, 2, and then a third, like knuckles that did not wish to offend. I held my breath. Yeah, I said, quiet. No answer. Only the long pause of a room that chooses not to echo. I got up and opened the door. The hallway smelled faintly of citrus again, like someone had wiped a counter and walked away. The hall closet stood closed. The exact inch had vanished. The pantry was dark. A folded square of paper sat on the rug, cantered by my threshold. No footsteps on either side. No sound. Just the paper, white in the dark. I picked it up by the corner and unfolded it in the dim. The ink looked like it had been written with a dull pen. 4 words, careful and slow. Please keep it open. I stood there with the note and the quiet, and the house waited for my answer. The second whistle rose, faint as breath through teeth. The note asked for a kindness I did not understand, written in a slow hand that pressed hard on the paper. Please keep it open. Quick question for you. Would you keep the closet open if a house asked politely? Tell me in the comments what you'd do and where you're listening from tonight. Morning softened the fear. That happens. Sunlight runs a cloth over everything and leaves it less sharp. I sat at the kitchen table with the note under my palm and tried to feel practical. Harper poured coffee with eyes at half-mast. Her hair was in a loose knot, a pen stuck through it like a pin. The calendar on the pantry door looked like a board game. Arrows, names, shifts, 3 colors, and a month mapped like a plan for peace. Sleep? She asked. Enough, I said. Her gaze slipped to my hand. What's that? I slid the paper across the table. She read it once, then again, as if the second pass might reveal a trick. Who left it? I don't know. It was on my floor, pushed under the door. I heard a knock, 3 soft taps, then nothing. Harper set the paper down like you set down a small animal that might bite. Is this a joke? I shook my head. If it is not a funny one. Jess shuffled in, sweatshirt sleeves over her hands like mittens. Why is everyone awake at the same time on a Saturday? Is there a fire drill? Harper nudged the paper toward her. Jess read. Her face changed in a slow way, like weather moving in. Do we have the only polite ghost on Alder Street? She said, trying to make it lighter, then looked at me with a steadier line. What did you do? Nothing yet. The hall closet sat behind us, closed when I last checked. The paint was chipped near the latch where hands had found it for years. The thin brass knob had a dull shine. Sun striped the floor. All normal, down to the dust that gathers in corners no matter how often you sweep. I stood and walked to it. Jess and Harper watched without getting up. I put my fingers on the knob and turned. The door moved easy under my hand, then met its usual catch. One small shoulder nudge, and it swung free. Inside, coats, a rain jacket, the broom, The vacuum with a frayed cord, a box of light bulbs, a crate of random house parts. The kind of closet that tells you a life is happening but never the whole story. The floorboard right inside had a slight give. Not much. I pressed my heel on it. It answered with a tired creak and settled. Harper stood in the doorway beside me. We should fix that before winter. The draft will live here. Jess leaned in, careful not to step on the threshold. She pointed at the top hinge. See the scrape? It's been catching for a long time. Maybe open by an inch is how it prefers to rest. She said it with a small smile, then took the note back to the table and smoothed it flat. Still, how did this end up in your room? I do not know. We tried to tuck it into the daylight and move on. People do that. You put a strange thing in the cabinet with the strange mugs and tell yourself it belongs. The closet stayed open through lunch. We left it alone, as if closing it without a reason would break a rule we had not agreed to yet. By noon, the house warmed in a way you can feel with your nose. Dust lit in the window like tiny birds that change their minds. A neighbor's radio drifted through the wall from somewhere in the row of houses behind us. The song was old and cheerful. It made the sink seem younger than it was. Mallory came in with a paper bag and a wind-lifted hello. She placed the bag on the counter and pulled out limes, cilantro, a tub of salsa, and a bag of tortilla chips with the corner already missing. Brunch, she said, like it was the solution to everything. Then her eyes found the closet. Open, not by an inch, open enough to be a choice. Is this a new aesthetic? House etiquette, Jess said. We had a note, I said, and showed it. Mallory scanned the words and grinned in a way that had trouble in it. Creepy. Cute creepy. Like a cat that sits on your chest and stares. She spooned salsa into a bowl and ate without offering, which was one of her small flaws and one of her charms. We should name it. The house, I mean. It is clearly a person. Please do not, Harper said, but smiled anyway. We ate chips with too much lime and made a grocery plan. Then the day unspooled, desk work for me, a nap for Jess, laundry for Harper, and a shower that ran a little too long for Mallory while she sang the same chorus twice. City day, house day, the kind of day that stacks quietly and feels real when you look back. Late afternoon turned the alley gray. A cold seam in the air found its way into the kitchen and made the tile feel like ice through socks. Harper taped a towel along the bottom of the back door as a temporary fix. She did these small kindnesses like breathing. At dusk, as I reached to turn on a lamp, I saw it, a shape in the closet that did not belong, not a shadow, a thing. Top shelf, far right, behind old board games, a glass bottle the color of river water, no label, half full with the faintest line of something pale. It was the exact height and shape of a soda bottle from a photo of someone's grandparents. The cap was metal. The metal was new. Did that bottle live here before? I asked the room. Harper looked. Never seen it. Jess peered up and reached. Careful, she said, though I was not touching it yet. Then she stood on her toes and slid it forward, two hands gentle. We held it to the window. The liquid inside moved slow, thick as syrup. The glass was clean. No dust on the lip. No ring on the shelf where it had sat. What is it? I asked. Not oil, Jess said. Harper sniffed, not touching the rim. Not vinegar. Mallory came up behind us with damp hair. New bar cart, she said, then saw our faces and shut her mouth. Jess tilted the bottle. The fluid clung. It left a wavering line at the top that took its time to fall back. We all waited for a smell to introduce itself. Nothing. If there was a scent, it was shy. I put the bottle back where it had been and felt the shelf with my fingertips. The dust told the truth. Someone placed it there recently. We are not drinking mystery syrup, Harper said, which was both obvious and right. We closed the door without meaning to. Only when the latch clicked did I feel what I had done. A step backward. A rule bent back toward its old shape. The house did not protest. The lamp warmed the room. The kettle sang a thin note to say it had reached its small goal. I poured tea and told myself that objects appear when 4 people share a space. That a bottle can be forgotten in a bag and left on a shelf. That there was no person behind the note. Only a prank we had not traced to its maker. At 9:15, Jess brushed her teeth and tapped her alarm for the early shift. She stood in the hallway and looked at the closet like it was a sleeping dog. "Leave it open?" she asked. "Yes," I said, and reached for the knob. The catch sighed, then gave. The door settled into its inch, the exact measure we knew now by eye. Harper cut paper towel into squares and tucked them under the legs of the wobbly table. She adjusted a chair by an inch. She breathed easier when it stopped rocking. Little repairs hold a day together. We stepped through the dark, turning off what did not need to glow. Porch, living room, kitchen, pantry. The hum died, and the room felt honest again. I closed my door, folded the blanket to my waist, and watched the green numbers climb toward what I already knew was coming. At 1:13, the 2 notes arrived. Soft, in the bones, not the ear. I sat up. The air felt cooler against my forearms. The whistle repeated. This time, there was a 3rd tone nested under the 2nd, faint as breath through a reed. I opened my door and stood in the doorway. The hall was a wet gray from streetlight spill. The closet sat in its inch. The line was true. I listened without moving. The sound came again, somewhere between a flute and air passing across a bottle lip. It was not loud. It was placed. It did not ask for attention. It took very little and made it feel like a lot. I stepped closer. My feet knew where the boards would complain and missed them. The floor inside the closet gave the small groan it always gave. I touched the bottle with one finger. Cold glass. I turned the cap a quarter. Metal rasp on metal. I stopped. Something whispered from inside the wall. Not a voice. Fabric on wood. The kind of whisper that happens when you slide a box back into place. "Hello," I said, as before, a greeting for a room. The whistle replied, 4 heartbeats later. 2 notes. The second one slightly lower, as if whoever made it had moved their mouth by a small part of an inch. My body wanted to flee. I did not. I did the human thing. I made a deal with air. "We will keep it open," I said. And I meant the door. And I meant the night. The kitchen light did not come on. I did not touch the pantry. I stood there until my breath slowed. Then I went back to bed with the neighbor's radio still thin through the wall, some late song about summer that did not match the month. Morning returned with a smell of toast and a question waiting on the table. The bottle now sat beside the fruit bowl. Someone had moved it. The cap was tight. A small circle of condensation had kissed the wood underneath and then dried. A second paper square lay next to it. 4 new words in the same slow hand. "Not for the pantry." Harper exhaled through her nose, a long line of air that tried not to become a sound. "Okay," she said. "We rewrite the rules. Pantry stays dark at night. Closet stays at an inch. Mystery bottle lives here. If this is a prank, it will get bored if we do not feed it." Jess nodded. "We keep a log. Dates, times, notes." She pulled a notebook from the drawer where we kept coupons and batteries. She wrote at the top in neat print, "House etiquette." Below it, the date. Then 1:13 a.m. Whistle, closet open by an inch, bottle moved to table. Note says, "Not for the pantry." "Who writes like that?" Mallory said, chewing on a slice of lime. "This looks like someone learned cursive from a museum plaque." "We do not make fun of our anonymous etiquette coach," Jess said, and wrote that down too, which made Harper snort into her mug. "Small laughter helps. It loosens the knot behind your ribs. After breakfast, I called our landlord. I described the hinge, the catch, the draft. I did not describe the note. He promised to send someone. He did not. Landlords are weather. You check the forecast and still bring a jacket. In the lull after the call, I sent a message to the previous tenants. The lease folder had an email for forwarding deposits and lost mail. I typed a polite line. Hi, did the hall closet give you trouble? Any quirks we should know? I stared at the blinking cursor, then added, also, did you ever hear a whistle at night around 1? Strange question, I know. I hit send and felt silly, but sometimes you throw a line into the lake just to say you tried. No reply came that day. Midweek slid in and sat down. We fell back into our lanes. Harper's clinical hours stretched and made her softer from lack of sleep. Jess moved like a small metronome with a kind smile for strangers. I carried my backpack and my careful notes. Mallory burned through a set of days like kindling and left little piles of ash in the shape of stories she started and did not finish. When you live with people, you learn their sounds. Harper's key in the lock was a quick, precise buzz and turn. Jess shut doors with a little hug from her shoulder first. My step had a pause before the last tread. Mallory's return was often a wind that preceded her by 3 seconds. On Thursday, that wind arrived at 12:40 with the rain. She came in soaked and bright-eyed, hair in a careless knot, jacket dripping over the mat. Do not scream, she said, smiling too wide. I met someone. Harper looked up from a med-surg book. Jess raised a brow. I set down my pen. He's in a band that never starts on time, she said. He asked about my favorite city at midnight. Who does that? He is trouble in the way that makes you feel awake. She said his name like she was learning it as she spoke. Then she stuck a grocery store cupcake on the counter like a trophy, peeled the paper, and took one giant bite that left a smear of icing on her lip. Water? I offered. She shook her head. I'm full of rain. She looked at the closet. Without being asked, she reached out and nudged it to its inch. See? I can follow rules, she said, but her face flickered before the grin reset. Sometimes. When she finally slept, the house relaxed a little. A sound like someone turning over on an old mattress came from the ceiling. I wrote it down in the log and felt a little ridiculous and a little responsible at the same time. At 1:13, the whistle came. I lay awake and counted my breath through it. It felt less like an alarm and more like a check-in. I did not answer out loud. Friday afternoon, my phone chimed. The previous tenant had written back, "Hey, we called it the inch. If we shut it all the way, the kitchen got weird. Smell, pressure, headaches. A plumber said the wall needed air because of the old vent chase. We never figured it out. The whistle, yeah, we heard that too. I thought it was the neighbor's bathroom fan, but my girlfriend said it felt closer. We kept the closet cracked and the pantry light off after 10. The place was happier. Sounds goofy, but there you go. P.S. Don't store oil in there. It goes rancid fast. Something about the draft. P.S. 2. Did you find the bottle? Leave it on the table. Do not toss it. It belongs to the house." I stared at the words. The feeling of being handed a map someone else had drawn when they were lost hit me right in the chest. I wrote back a simple thank you and told them we were listening. That night, I did what any careful person would do while pretending not to be careful. I tested things. I closed the closet all the way and waited. In 5 minutes, the kitchen air felt heavier, like a room of people had just left with their coats. The fridge hum deepened. My ears popped. I opened the door back to its inch and felt the change like a window lifting. The air moved. The hum softened. The room exhaled. I stood there with my hand on the knob and thought, it is kinder to say yes when you can. At 10:03, I put the bottle at the edge of the table so the moonlight could find it. It caught a little silver and held it. Something in me liked the sight. I was almost asleep when the third knock came. Same soft rhythm as before. 1, 2, 3. My name did not follow. The hall light stayed off. I opened the door. No note this time. Only the scent of orange peel and the quiet shape of the closet in its inch. I stepped into the hall and felt a faint breeze on my ankles, the kind of movement a house makes when it draws a slow breath. To my right, the pantry was dark. It kept its promise. "Okay?" I whispered, not sure who I had become or who I was answering. The whistle answered, close as metal on glass. 2 notes with a third between them, like a held breath. In the morning, the bottle held something new at the bottom. A pale thread I hadn't seen before, twisting like a curl of smoke trapped in syrup. The note beside it, in that same slow hand, had only one word: listen. The bottle told me to listen, so I did the only sensible thing in a strange house. I set an alarm for 1:10 a.m. and waited in the dark like a student before a test. Would you have tried to record the sound or just let it be? Tell me in the comments and share where you're listening from and what time it is there. Morning gave the bottle a gentler face. The pale thread at the bottom was no longer one clean curl. It had split into a braid, 3 fine strands twisting as if they could think. I rotated the glass slowly. The braid held its shape for a breath, then slumped and reformed, slow as honey. Harper lifted the bottle to the window and squinted. "It wants something," she said, half a joke, half not. Jess wrote in the log, "Bottle. New thread splits to 3, movement slow, no scent, cap tight. Note word, listen." We kept our voices low without planning to. The kitchen felt like a library at opening hour. You speak small out of respect for other rooms. "Do we actually listen?" I asked. "To what?" Jess said. I tapped the page. "To the house. To the time. To the whistle." Harper nodded toward the closet. "We listen, but we do not perform. If we try to make it happen, it will not." She was right about many things. Still, I set a quiet alarm for the night. Curiosity is a polite word for what the mind does when it reaches for pattern. We each had places to be. The day split us into thin lines across town. I came home just before dusk with cheap tea and a pack of sticky notes. Jess had already underlined the date in the log. Harper had taped a square of felt over the pantry switch so your finger met softness before light. A small reminder. Mallory drifted in close to 9, humming a tune I did not know. Her jacket smelled like a bar in rain. She looked at the bottle and bit her lip to hide a smile. "Still whispering?" she asked. "It does not whisper," I said. "It moves." "Same thing," she said, and nudged the closet so the inch felt true again. She saw my phone on the table and the timer I had set. "You are going to record it?" "I want to know if the sound is only in the bones," I said, "or in the air." She leaned on the counter. "Please tell me if it sings back." She was softer that night. She rinsed her cup without clatter. She dried the rim. She put the cup on the second shelf, like it had always been there. Good signs. At 10, the house began its slow drift toward sleep. Lights blinked out in an order we knew now by heart. Porch, living room, kitchen, pantry. The hum fell away. Only the fridge kept a line under the music of the night. I lay in bed and listened to the small things. Pipes settling. A taxi sliding past the alley with tires whispering on wet pavement. The tick of my clock. The old beam above me making the sound a tree makes when it remembers wind. At 1:10, the alarm grazed my ear and stopped. I sat up and let my eyes adjust. The air felt level, no charge, just the hour. I opened the recording app and set the phone on my desk. The red dot glowed like a coal. I opened my door and leaned into the hall. The house held its breath the way a stage does before lines begin. The closet sat in its inch. The pantry was dark. The bottle on the table caught a slip of streetlight and held it. I did not move closer. I let the distance be. The green clock face across my room clicked over to 113, each segment of the number changing like a door latch. 2 notes shaped the air. Gentle, true, each one separate, then together in the room. I felt them in my throat and along the skin of my forearms, a soft drag of cool. The recorder on my desk showed no spikes. The screen stayed flat. It was listening and hearing nothing. I swallowed. The sound came again. This time a third tone hid under the second like a shadow under a curtain. I took a shallow breath. The recorder heard my breath and drew a fine gray mountain for it. The whistle still left no mark. So it was in the body then, not the speaker in the phone, not the air moved by a cone. It was something that touched bone and blood. The knowledge made me calmer. You can be less afraid of a thing once you know where it lives. I stood still until the sound faded down to memory. I clicked stop and set the phone face down. The house loosened its shoulders. A car door closed 2 streets over. A cat knocked a bottle near the alley bin and sent it rolling. The world returned to itself. At breakfast, I told them. The recorder picked up my breath and a distant bus, but not the notes. Jess wrote, "Recorder did not capture whistle. Sensation body only. Rationale unknown." She underlined unknown and drew a small circle around it like she was saving a seat. Harper poured hot water over a bag of chamomile and tapped the rim twice with her spoon. "Maybe it prefers living things," she said. "Maybe it travels through us." Mallory blew on her coffee and did not drink. "Maybe the house is shy." She smiled at her own line, but the smile ended quick. "Did you try talking to it?" I shook my head. No questions, just listening. "Good," Harper said. "No invitations either." We nodded like we had signed a pact. We had not written one, but the log on the table was our treaty. Pantry dark after 10, closet at an inch, bottle on the table. Listen. No questions after midnight. Kindness before doubt. It read like a set of house manners your grandmother might have taught you without calling them rules. Midday, I took a slow walk around the block to see our house from the outside, the way strangers might. Alder Street sat quiet, with its string of porches and a fence that had never been finished. The maple on the corner wore a yellow that felt like a small song. Our windows looked ordinary from the sidewalk. I stood long enough that a neighbor across the street waved. I waved back to look less odd. On the way home, I saw the mailbox flag was up. Bills and a glossy flyer for a pizza place. Under those, an envelope addressed to forwarding, with the name of the previous tenant. They had not updated the post office yet. I tucked the envelope in my bag and wrote them a quick note when I got inside. "Your letter came. Do you want us to hold it or send it on?" Their reply came an hour later. "You can open it if it looks like house stuff. We left things that belong to the house in envelopes sometimes. Thank you for asking." I turned the envelope in my hands. It had no return address, only a careful hand and a stamp with a lighthouse. I slid a butter knife under the flap and eased it open. Inside was a single paper, folded twice. Same slow script. "Please keep it open." The ink looked older. The paper smelled faintly of lemon, as if someone had folded it on a counter after wiping up. I showed the others. Mallory whistled without knowing it. 2 thin notes that wandered and missed the pitch. "It has hobbies," she said. Harper touched the paper like it was a fragile leaf. "This is not a new game. We are late to it." Jess taped the old note beside our new ones in the log, a little museum of instruction. Late afternoon, Harper asked me to help her with the hinge. We took the closet door off and sanded the scrape until the wood moved clean. We did not erase the inch. We respected it. We put the door back and left it ajar by a finger. It felt right to keep the balance. We cleaned the top shelf and found the dust mark where the bottle had not lived. We set the old board games in a neat stack. We vacuumed the threshold and the first floorboard inside. The floor still gave when you stepped on it, the way old floors confess they are old. When we were done, Harper leaned her forehead on the frame and exhaled like she had carried a bag too far. "Better," she said. I wrote in the log, "Repairs, hinge sanded, door can close and open without catch, inch respected." We tried to bring life back to the normal kind. Jess baked something simple and shared squares on napkins. The house filled with butter and sugar and heat. For an hour we talked about exams and shifts and a cat we had seen near the mailboxes. A regular evening. Then the doorbell rang. It startled us only because people usually text first. Harper went to the door. A man in a yellow shirt held a small package with our address and a name we did not know. Wrong delivery. He apologized. His eyes slid past Harper and into the dark of our front hall like he had expected company. "Smells like lemons," he said, and then laughed at himself. "Sorry, I like clean houses." "Thank you," Harper said, and closed the door with the calm she kept for most things. We stood still and listened to his steps on the porch wood. The boards gave the same places they give for us. The sound of them felt like the scale a piano makes when you test if it is in tune. A tiny thought made itself known in the back of my head. The smell, the notes, the inch, the careful rules. None of it wanted harm. It wanted ritual. It wanted air and attention. At 11:40, my phone buzzed. The previous tenants again. "Sorry, one more thing. The bottle likes sound. We learned that by accident. Do not sing into it. Just let the house find it. We left you 3 threads on purpose. They will do what they do." It sounds wild written out like this, but you will understand. I read the message twice. I did not show it to the others yet. I was afraid of guiding us like a tour with flashcards. I put the phone face down and looked at the bottle. The braid of threads had thickened. Where the liquid met glass, a thin ring had formed, light as a fingerprint. I did not blow across the lip. I did not hum. I sat with my hands in my lap, quiet as a listener before a shy instrument. At 1:06, rain began in a thin line, a quiet start, the sound roof shingles make when they wake up. At 1:13, the notes came. I stayed in bed and listened to my own breath between them. 1, 2, a softness underneath like a third string tuned to the floor. Then a new detail, a second pair of notes from somewhere else in the house, a few beats late, as if 2 people had tried to whistle together and did not agree on the count. I sat up. The house had 2 voices that night, one near the closet, one near the back door. I opened my door. The hallway carried a slow draft. The inch held true. The pantry was dark. I could see the shape of the bottle on the table like a person at rest. Another pair of notes, this time closer together, the second voice catching up. "Hello," I said, because the word had started to feel like placing a hand flat on a table to show you mean no harm. Something clicked near the back door. Not the bolt. A tap. The kind of sound a small glass makes when it touches wood. I went to the kitchen in bare feet, past the log and the bottle and the fruit bowl. The towel Harper had taped to the door to stop the draft had fallen to the floor, like a scarf dropped by a hurried person. I picked it up. The air there felt cooler, not cold, just fresh, rain breath fresh. A thin line of water had snuck under the door and stopped at the rug. I pressed the rug with my toes. Damp. Not enough to worry a landlord. Enough to make the night smell like outside. The notes repeated, gentler, and then rested. I waited in the middle of the kitchen with the towel in my hands. The fridge clicked off. The kind of silence that follows felt wide without feeling empty. From the hallway, a footstep, slow, not ours, a weight that understood where to place itself, then another, then none. "Jess?" I said. Her door opened and her face appeared, hair mussed, eyes clear. "Not me," she whispered. She looked past me at the bottle. "Do you see it?" The pale threads inside moved again. Not a slump now, but a deliberate draw upward as if something pulled from below. They rose a finger's width, stopped, swayed, rested. We watched for longer than people usually stand in a kitchen at night. The bottle did not give us more. It had made its point. Listen, notice, do not ask too much. We cleared the towel and set a dry one. We left a small bowl by the back door in case the rain softened the threshold again. It felt like leaving water out for a visitor who only travels at night. Morning found the bowl empty and dry. The bottle sat where we left it. The braid at the bottom had split once more. Now 4 fine threads lay in the syrup, each one curved toward the center like petals before bloom. Jess drew them in the log in the margin. "A little flour," she said. "Harper made us eggs and toast the way you do after a late night with no drama. She salted the eggs without looking. She asked about our schedules while she buttered bread. She did not ask about the footsteps. Sometimes not asking is a gift." "Do we tell Mallory?" she asked finally. I thought about the look she carried lately, a shine with a thin crack under it. "We tell her only what she can hold." As if called, she came down the stairs in a long sweater with sleeves past her hands. She slid into a chair and stole Jess's toast and kissed her cheek to make it even. "Good morning, library mice," she said, then lowered her voice. I did not sleep. "Thoughts or noise?" Jess asked. "Both," she said. She glanced at the bottle. "I dreamt I was swimming in a house, room to room, and each room was its own temperature. The kitchen was a lake in early fall. The hall was a bath after someone stepped out. The closet was river water with a slow current." She laughed at herself. "Sorry, I know that makes no sense." "It makes enough sense," I said. She held my gaze a second longer than a joke requires. "I left the back door for air," she said. "Only a little. Only while I stood there. I closed it. I swear, she had not left it open. The draft we felt had its own key. Afternoon brought word from the landlord finally. A handyman named Alan would stop by tomorrow to look at the door and the hinge. He would call first. I typed thank you and put my phone face down. Repairs were good. A witness would be good too. Jess taped a fresh page in the log. House etiquette, page 2. We cataloged small things like curators, the way the toaster stuck on setting 3, the corner where the rug always folded, the minute when the train horn came in from the river road. It felt calming to put lines around what we could know while we stood near what we could not. Just after sunset, my phone buzzed with a number I did not know. I stepped onto the porch to take it. A woman's voice, warm, a little breathless. "Hi, you do not know me. I'm Lee. I lived there 2 tenants before you. Your message was forwarded. I saw the word whistle and had to call." I sat on the top step where the wood was smooth from feet. The street smelled like wet leaves and a little bit of gas from a car in need of a tune-up. "Thank you for calling," I said. She laughed softly. "I know it sounds foolish. I just want to tell you not to be afraid of it. The house liked company. We thought it was the old vent chase in the wall until the bottle moved. It asks for small things and gives small things back. It does not bite." "What did it give you?" I asked. "A pause," she said, "and on our last night it gave me a sound I have not heard since I was a child. A 2-note whistle my grandfather used in the garden when he wanted me to come inside. Same notes, same shape, at 1:13. I cried and felt very silly about it. I am telling you because if you hear anything that feels like yours, do not run. It is a good gift." I thanked her and wrote down her name. I asked her to tell me if there was anything we should not do. She thought. "We never brought the bottle to a party. We never put it in the pantry. We did not sing into it. We learned those slowly. It liked the inch. It liked lemon. That is all I have." "Lemon," I said. "Wipe the table with it and you will see," she said, and then she had to go. City life calls people off mid-sentence. I went back inside and fetched the half lemon in the fridge. I cut a thin slice and ran it over the table where the bottle sat. A clean, sharp brightness rose. Not chemical. Fruit. The bottle's threads leaned almost nothing at all. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe I did not. At 1:13, I did one last small experiment. I sat with the bottle and the log and a pencil. I did not speak. I breathed slow and steady so the recorder, if it could have heard the thing, would have drawn a soft wave for it. The 2 notes came. When they finished, I slid the pencil a finger's width on the table. Wood on wood. A tiny sound. The bottle's threads lifted the smallest measure in answer. Only a little. Only once. I did not move the pencil again. I did not push my luck. I went to bed with the sense that we had passed a test we did not know we were taking. The house stayed quiet. The night did not bring footsteps or doors. Only rain and the odd fox bark in the alley. Just before sleep found me, a single soft tap touched my door. 1 tap, not 3. I opened my eyes to the dark and listened. No further sound followed. I did not get up. I let the moment be a dot at the end of a line. Morning gave me a new paper on the rug. No knock this time, so it had come while I slept. The same slow hand. 2 lines. "Tonight only. Bring the bottle." The note had a time written below in careful numbers. 1:13. I held it in both hands and felt the glass across the room waiting like a quiet instrument that finally had a song. The house had been whispering rules and scraps of paper, and now it wanted something more. Not silence, not distance, but company at 1:13. Would you have brought the bottle where the note asked or ignored it? Drop your answer below, and tell me what you'd bring if you had to walk through a dark house at 1 a.m. The paper sat on the kitchen table all day, folded and unfolded until the crease wore thin. Jess kept touching it, smoothing it flat with her palm like it was a fragile receipt you don't want to lose. "Do we trust it?" she asked. Harper didn't look up from her tea. "We don't trust. We notice." Mallory was the only one who smiled. "Finally," she said, "an invitation." The log grew another page that afternoon. Jess copied the note word for word. Time, 1:13. Instruction, bring the bottle. We all signed our initials at the bottom, a habit that had started to feel like ritual. We debated the location. The note hadn't said where. Kitchen, closet, back door. Each choice carried its own weight. "It said bring, not place," Harper pointed out. "Maybe the act is enough." By dusk, the bottle's threads had grown restless. 4 pale strands floated loose, weaving and unweaving like hair in slow water. The sight of it made me uneasy. It wasn't random anymore. It was practice. We spent the evening in the living room, pretending to read, pretending to scroll. The minutes slid past in long stretches. No one turned on the TV. At midnight, Harper lit a candle. "So we don't trip," she said. But the flame's small circle made the dark seem thicker beyond it. At 1:05, Jess fetched the bottle. She held it to her chest like a baby, careful not to tilt. "Cold," she whispered, though the glass had sat in the kitchen all day. We gathered in the hall by instinct. The candlelight touched each of our faces in turns. Mallory hummed under her breath until Harper nudged her. At 1:12, the air changed. Not colder, not heavier, just awake. When the clock rolled over, The house gave its 2 notes. Clear, soft, true. Jess lifted the bottle. Inside, the threads pulled upward, straining against the glass as if they heard too. Then a reply came, not from the closet, not from the kitchen, from below. The basement, where the concrete was always damp, where none of us ever lingered. 2 notes again, slower, stretched. A mirror of the first. Mallory grinned. It's a duet. Harper's face stayed still. No basement. But the bottle leaned in Jess's hands, a tiny slosh to the side, as though it wanted to tilt toward the floor. We stayed frozen for a long half-minute. Then the second pair of notes ended, leaving a silence so sharp you could hear our own breathing. Jess set the bottle back on the floor in the center of the hall. "That's all we give," she whispered. The threads settled slowly, curling inward, weaving themselves into one tight knot. The house released us then. The boards creaked like normal wood again. The fridge clicked. The night exhaled. We stood around the bottle until 1:30, waiting for a sign, but nothing came. Finally, Harper blew out the candle. "That's enough." Back in my room, I lay awake longer than I meant to. Not afraid exactly, but tuned. Every small sound carried meaning. The scrape of rain on the window, a car passing with one bad headlight, a shift in the roof beams as the temperature dropped. At 2:07, a new sound joined. A footstep on the basement stairs, slow, careful, pausing halfway as if listening. I sat up, every nerve awake. Another step, then silence. I didn't move, didn't breathe loud. I let the dark hold me. When morning came, the bottle's threads were gone. Not slumped, not floating. Gone. The liquid sat clear and empty as if it had never held anything at all. Jess checked twice, 3 times. She shook the glass lightly, then set it down with a clink. "It emptied itself," she said. Harper wrote, "Threads absent, liquid clear, post 113, possible completion." But none of us said the truth out loud. That absence doesn't mean finished. Sometimes it means transferred. That night, when I reached for my phone, I saw the reflection of the bottle in my screen. For a moment, the glass looked empty. Then 2 pale strands drifted, not inside it, but behind me. By morning, the bottle was clear, and the house felt lighter. But when I lifted my phone at night, I saw 2 pale strands float behind me, as if the liquid had traded glass for air. Quick check-in. If a house asked you to keep one door open forever, would you do it? Tell me your answer, and where you're listening from right now. Alan called at 9 on the dot. His voice had the friendly rasp of someone who works with doors and weather. He said he would be there in 20. He was there in 15. He stood on the porch with a canvas tool bag and a careful smile. Mid-50s, clean ball cap, neat gray beard, hands that had learned patience. He wiped his boots on the mat without being asked. It made Harper like him at once. "Show me the stubborn places," he said. We started with the back door. He ran his palm along the frame, tapped a few spots with his knuckle, listened to the wood like a doctor with a heartbeat. He crouched to the threshold and frowned in a friendly way. "You get water in here when it rains?" "A thin line," I said. He nodded. "The sill is tired. We can help it keep going, and the sweep is older than it wants to be." He replaced the sweep in under 5 minutes. New strip, clean line, snug fit. He pressed it with his fingers and nodded to himself. He set a small bowl on the floor without being told. He had brought it in from the porch with the tool bag. It was ours now. He filled it from the tap and watched the surface for a second. No ripple. He smiled. Better. Then the hall closet. He looked at the hinge and the latch and the top of the frame where the paint had rubbed thin. He put his shoulder against the door and let it close to its usual inch. He tilted his head. "This wants to rest right here," he said. You can make a door do anything, but it will be happier if you let it do the thing it wants. Harper surprised herself by saying, "We know," and then flushing. She told him we kept it cracked to keep the kitchen breathing. He did not laugh. He nodded as if houses were people with lungs. He took the door off the hinges with easy movements, sanded the edge, checked the reveal, planed a breath of wood from the spot that had swollen. He worked without small talk. The sound of the plane was soft, a patient scrape that soothed more than it disturbed. "Try this," he said, and set the door back. It swung. It met the catch. It stopped at the inch on its own, without push or wedge. Jess grinned. "You tuned it." Alan smiled. "You would be amazed how many doors want to stop just shy of closed. Sometimes it is the house telling you it prefers the air to move." He put his tools back in the bag and wiped the dust from his hands with a folded rag that smelled faintly of lemon. He noticed the bottle on the table and gave it the same respectful look you give an odd heirloom in someone else's home. He did not touch it. "You have a good place," he said. "Old work, but honest work." We walked him to the porch. He stepped down one stair, then paused like he remembered something. "You hear anything at night?" he asked in a voice that did not make fun of the question. Harper waited. I answered. "Sometimes a whistle." 2 notes. At 1:13 in the morning. He nodded without surprise. "I hear it on Alder when I am out late. Houses here hold on to their paths." "Is it the vents?" Jess asked. "Could be," he said. "Could be the river wind pinching a seam. Could be memory. If it is not harming anyone, I tend to let houses keep their habits." He tipped his cap, said to call if the sweep misbehaved, and left with the steady step of someone who knows where every board on a porch will speak. When the door shut, the house felt a tiny bit taller. Repairs do that. The mind sits up straighter. We folded Alan's visit into the log. Back door sweep replaced. Closet tuned to rest at 1 inch. Handyman confirmed house preference for air. We left a blank line after that, as if something else would want to be written there later. The day moved like a slow river. I brought my work to the kitchen table and stayed near the bottle without planning to. The liquid was clear as sky. No threads, no cloud. If I leaned too close, the glass smelled faintly of clean wood. Jess studied on the couch with a blanket over her knees. Harper slept for an hour and looked younger. Mallory came and went like weather. She returned with a paperback, pretended to read it, then set its spine up and watched the hall as if a friend might walk in from an empty room. "Do you ever feel like sound is a person?" she asked me quietly. "Sometimes," I said. "Some sounds arrive with posture." She smiled at that. She nodded toward the closet. "And that one has manners." At dusk, we tried a small test. We wiped the kitchen table with lemon, not much, just a thin circle where the bottle sat. We watched for any sign. The surface shone, nothing more. "Maybe it likes clean," Harper said. "Maybe we do," Jess said. Night came with a thin wind and the scent of smoke from a neighbor's stove. We turned lights off one at a time. Pantry last. The hum died. The house gave us back our ears. I slept with my window a finger open. Somewhere a gate clinked in a rhythm that found its way into my breathing. I woke once at 12 to the fox bark in the alley and smiled, because even certain small fears become familiar. At 1:10, I sat up without the alarm. I listened to the quiet in the hall, the way you listen to someone's breath in the next room. The closet rested in its inch. The back door held. The bowl by the threshold made a shallow circle of reflection that caught the rectangle of the porch light and turned it upside down. At 1:13, the notes arrived. They were the same shape, but softer. Not weak, just close. The first sounded from the closet. The second sounded from near the back door. A third tone lived under both, like a finger resting on a guitar string without pressing. I stepped into the hall and stopped to let my eyes catch up. The bottle on the table held still. The clear liquid was a shade lower than the night before. Not much, just the kind of difference you see if you live with something and notice it every day. I did not try to record. I did not speak. I let the notes shape the room and fade. A small sound followed from the basement. A hush against wood. The answer a hand makes on a rail when it changes its mind about the next step. Then quiet. I stood there until the numbers on the green clock stepped to 1:16. Then I went back to bed with my heart steady and my shoulders loose. I slept. The next morning, Jess made oatmeal for all of us and pretended it was a treat. I told them about the soft third tone. She wrote it down like a detail from a field guide. Harper moved through the kitchen with the calm of someone who had slept, who does not want to break the spell. She kissed her finger and pressed it to the doorway that Alan had planed, a silly little thanks. The gesture made me love her more. Around 10, the email from the previous tenant arrived. The subject line said lemon. The body was only a few lines. We wiped the table with lemon when we wanted the house to remember daytime. We did it in winter when the sun forgot us. The bottle likes lemon, but not in the pantry. Keep the inch. Avoid mirrors at 1:13. I do not know why. It made us sad. Lee. I read it twice and then a third time. The last line pricked like a thorn you cannot see. Avoid mirrors at 1:13. It made us sad. I did not tell them at once. I watched the morning and waited. I watched the bottle and the door and the way Mallory's smile would show and then drop like a piece of paper caught in a draft. Jess noticed my face do a thing and asked with her eyes. I passed my phone to her. She read. She passed it to Harper. Harper read and placed the phone face down and stared at the lemon ring on the table, as if the answer might lift up from the wood. We listen, she said. We do not test sadness. We made a note in the log. Avoid mirrors at 1:13. Reason unknown. Then we turned the page and made a new list called House Etiquette. Simple and plain. Closet rests at 1 inch. Pantry dark after 10. Back door kept dry. Bottle on table. Lemon in daylight. No mirrors at 1:13. Listen before doing. The list calmed me more than tea. Afternoon brought rain, a quiet, steady kind. It made the house smell clean and woolly at the same time. I put my work away and took a slow walk through the rooms, touching the soft places with my eyes. The bowl by the door, the fold in the rug that Harper had flattened earlier, the calendar on the pantry with a small star by a day we had promised to cook for each other, the closet at its inch. I stopped there and placed my fingers on the knob. I did not move it. I stood and listened. I thought I could hear a low movement from within the wall. Not sound exactly, more like intention passing through an old pipe. It reminded me of the way a person clears their throat without noise before reading aloud. Thank you, I said to the space, and felt like a person who has said grace in a kitchen for the first time. In the late day, Harper brought in groceries and oranges and a small bundle of eucalyptus from the discount bucket. She set the bundle on the counter and stared at it like she had bought a pocket forest. For the bathroom, she said. Steam and leaf smell. It feels like being caretaken by a stranger. We ate easy food and did dishes with our shoulders touching now and then, a silent check-in. Mallory came home with wet hair and a bright face and told us nothing about where she had been. She tossed me the paperback and asked what page was best. I said the middle. She laughed and did not open it. We did not mention mirrors at dinner. We did not mention sadness. We talked about rain and exams and a song Jess was learning on the old piano in the student center. We left the others alone. At midnight, I placed my mirror face down on my desk. I turned the small makeup compact in my drawer so it did not face the room. Harper did the same. Jess did the same. We did not say we did it. We just did it. At 1:10, I sat up and breathed like someone learning a new instrument. I thought of Alan listening to Wood. I thought of Lee hearing her grandfather in the garden. I thought of the two pale strands I had seen in my phone screen the night before. At 1:13, the notes came. They were softer again, or maybe my heart made more room for them this time. The first held for the length of an old breath. The second leaned under it and made a shade. Then, in the room, another sound, a new one, small and precise. A fingernail against glass. Not a tap, a draw, as if someone traced the lip of the bottle for an inch and then stopped. I stood and opened my door. The hall wore its usual thin gray. The bottle sat where we left it. The liquid inside had dropped another fraction. No threads, no cloud, only clear. Something else waited there too. A sheet of paper, square and white, folded once, centered by the closet threshold. I crouched and picked it up. The slow hand wrote only 2 lines. "You are listening well. There is a mirror behind the closet." I held the paper longer than you hold a paper with 2 lines. I felt the words move through me like air in a small pipe. I thought of the inch. I thought of what sadness might feel like if I did not listen. I did not open the door. I placed the note on the table under the lemon ring and smoothed it flat with my palm. In the morning, I showed them. Harper read it and pressed her thumb to the edge like she could seal it inside the day. Jess sat back in her chair and exhaled without sound. Mallory stared at the door and raised her hand slowly, like she would in class. "We do not look," she said. "No," Harper said. I added a line to the list. "Do not open the closet at night. Reason given. Mirror behind the closet." The warning sat in the room like a chair turned to face the wall. By afternoon, the rain had moved on. Sun found the edge of a plate and ran along it so bright we all winced and laughed. We opened a window to air the kitchen, then closed it when the alley cat decided to sing. At 5, someone knocked. Not the soft night knock. A clear day knock. Alan again. He had returned to check the sweep and the hinge. He stood on the mat with the same cap and the same rag and a lemon tucked in his bag like a personal trick. "Thought I might as well seal the threshold too," he said. "This house has earned it." He worked for half an hour and told us a story about a porch that tilted 2 inches over 100 years and never broke a single board. He told it softly, like you tell a story to people you do not want to wake. We stood nearby and listened like children in a kitchen while a kind uncle fixes something that seemed too big for our hands. When he finished, he looked at the closet without touching it. "You keep it like that?" he asked. "Yes," I said. He nodded. "Then keep it like that." He stepped to the table, saw the notes, and said nothing. He took his rag from his bag and wiped a small circle on the wood by habit. The faint lemon smell that followed felt like a neighbor who knows when to leave a plate and when to leave you alone. After he left, we sat with tea and let the house come back to itself. The bowl by the door was dry, the sweep held. We turned the lights off slowly when night came. As always, pantry last. The hum held a second, then let go. The floor felt warm from the day. We each moved to our rooms with the soft step of people who have learned a house's alphabet. Just before I closed my door, a small sound drifted from the closet. Not glass, not hinge, a breath. The kind a person releases in a mirror before they speak. It made the hairs on my arms rise without fear, only awareness. I closed my door and sat on the edge of the bed and listened to my own breath for a minute, to see if it could be that. It was not. I put the compact mirror in the drawer and placed a folded scarf over it for good measure. I set my phone face down. I left the hallway dark. At 1:13 the notes came, and this time they arrived with a narrow glint under the closet door, a strip of light where no light lived, as if a mirror had caught what little the street gave and sent it back to us. The strip of light thinned, a blade of pale that moved once across the floor, and a quiet line of writing slid under the door and stopped by my toes. At 1:13, the closet breathed light, a thin blade sliding across the floor, and then a sheet of paper slipped out, as if pushed by a hand that did not want to be seen. Imagine this: a note slides under your closet door in the middle of the night. Would you read it right away or wait until morning? Let me know in the comments, and tell me what time it is where you are right now. The paper rested against my toes, heavy as if it carried more than ink. I crouched and lifted it with both hands. The folds were crisp, the edges neat. In the same slow hand, the words read, "Not all reflections belong to you." I sat on the edge of my bed with the note balanced on my knees. The closet door glowed faintly, the kind of glow that could be mistaken for streetlight, except the window was dark. I did not open it. I let the glow fade, the way you let a match burn down without blowing it out. By morning, the note looked ordinary again. The paper felt dry, almost brittle, like it had waited in a drawer for years. I placed it on the kitchen table beside the others. Jess stared at it for a long time without speaking. Harper touched the word reflections with the tip of her finger, as if testing if it was still wet. Mallory leaned back in her chair, eyes half closed, and said, "That's beautiful." Then, after a pause, "But creepy beautiful, not poster beautiful." Jess wrote it in the log. She left a space under it as if more might arrive, which unsettled me more than the words themselves. The day carried on. Sun washed the front porch pale. The eucalyptus in the bathroom gave off a faint green scent that made showers feel safe. We tried to fold into routine. Harper with her textbooks, Jess with her shifts, me with notes that blurred after an hour. But the words sat with us like a quiet guest. Not all reflections belong to you. By evening, I could not stop myself. I walked to the hall closet and placed my palm against the door. The inch of space hummed faintly. Not sound, just tension, as if the house remembered something I had not yet seen. "Don't," Harper said from the kitchen. Her voice wasn't sharp, just steady. "Not at night." "I won't," I said, and I meant it, but curiosity bent my bones forward. That night, I set my alarm for 12:45. I wanted time to think before the hour arrived. I sat at the kitchen table with only the porch light leaking in. The bottle stood in its circle of lemon scent, half full, clear. At 1:10, the air shifted. The refrigerator hum grew louder. The back door clicked once, though no one touched it. At 1:13, the notes came. Two soft tones, familiar now, like a lullaby sung by someone who doesn't want to wake you fully. And then, the mirror light again, a seam of brightness under the closet door. It widened, then narrowed like a slow breath through teeth. I held still, listening. A new sound joined, the faint scrape of wood against wood, like something shifting inside the wall. Then came a whisper, not a word, not language, just the texture of breath on glass. The glow faded. Silence returned. When I looked at the table, the bottle was lower, almost empty now, a finger's width of liquid clinging to the bottom. Morning brought rain. Harper found a fresh note folded by the fruit bowl. The same hand. "Do not stand between glass and dark." Jess wrote it into the log without comment. She set her pen down with a click that sounded final. We talked in circles. Was the house protecting us, warning us, or luring us into rules that made no sense outside its walls? Harper said, "Some places ask for kindness. That doesn't mean they're kind." Mallory laughed and said, "That's the most Harper thing you've ever said." But her laugh had edges. That evening, I caught her in the hall, staring at the closet with her head tilted. "It's just a door," she said when she saw me. But her voice didn't believe it. I did not argue. The night came, and with it, another decision. I placed my mirror under my bed, face down. I draped a sweater over the bathroom mirror. I turned my phone so the black screen didn't face me. At 1:13, the notes came. Softer, fainter, almost sad. The glow did not appear. The closet stayed at its inch. But when I returned to my room, my mirror was no longer under the bed. It stood propped against the wall, uncovered, facing me. I had not touched it. The glass caught my reflection, and someone else's standing in the closet doorway that was still closed. The glass caught my face and something that wasn't mine, a second shape in the closet doorway, even though the door still sat at its careful inch. What would you do if a mirror showed someone in a doorway that was still closed? Tell me in the comments, and let me know where you're listening from and the time on your clock. I did not shout. I did not lunge for a light. I let my breath slow and counted to 5 with my eyes open. The mirror leaned against the wall where I had not left it. The closet door in real space stayed fixed, paint against jamb, 1 inch of dark. In the mirror, the inch was wider. A person stood inside that extra space, not tall, not looming, a simple human outline. Still. I looked at the real door again. No change. The warning on the table returned to me in a clean line. Avoid mirrors at 1:13. It made us sad. I moved my gaze an inch right so the mirror sat at the edge of vision. The figure softened at once, like a face you remember but cannot place. "Jess," I said, not loud. Her door opened and her head appeared, hair tucked behind one ear. "You okay?" "Come see," I said, "but do not stand in front of it." She crossed the floor in sock feet and stopped at my shoulder. We looked together. The mirror still showed 2 people in my room, me near the desk, another at the closet, where the inch was wrong. Jess lifted a hand and waved. My reflection waved back. The second shape did not. "I don't like that," she said, and kept her voice even. "Me neither." We did not say ghost. We did not say person. The house had taught us to name smaller. "Lemon," she said. "Yes." She left and returned with a thin slice on her palm. I slipped the slice under the frame and rubbed it along the lower edge of the mirror. Sharp scent, clean. The air in the room felt brighter by a notch. In the glass, the second shape stepped back. Not far, just a small retreat, as if light had asked for room and been given it. Jess exhaled without sound. "Okay." We stood a little longer. Nothing else moved. The digital clock at the edge of my desk rolled to 1:16. The mirror cooled. The second shape thinned like breath on glass and disappeared. My room returned to one person again. I took the mirror and turned it face down. No scrape, no drama, just wood on wood. Then I put a sweater over it because small comforts count. "Thank you," I said. Jess nodded. "Tea?" "Yes?" We kept the kettle quiet and poured hot water like nurses in a sleeping ward. We did not talk about sadness. We did not poke at what we had just pulled away from our eyes. We went back to sleep and let the hour walk off on its own. In the morning, I told Harper and left out nothing. She listened and then held the bridge of her nose with thumb and knuckle the way she did when a case report demanded care. "Not all reflections belong to you," she said, repeating the note. She let the words live in the air for a few seconds. "Okay, we treat mirrors like windows, curtains drawn at night." She wrote it in the log. She added a small lemon doodle by the line and then looked embarrassed at herself for drawing in a serious book. The house smelled like coffee and citrus peel. Rain had taken a day off. Light came in, weak but honest. The bottle sat on the table in its lemon ring, down to a thin coin of clear at the bottom. No threads, no cloud, only a little glass and the way it caught the room. Mallory wandered in with sleep on her face and left it there. She looked at us, then at the mirror tucked under the sweater, and read the room like a pulse. "Bad dream?" she asked. Wrong hour, Jess said. Mallory's mouth twisted into a worried shape she did not do often. I keep dreaming of water in the closet, she said, like a slow creek, only square. I poured her coffee and let the heat live in her hands. She took one sip and set the mug down. I'm seeing someone, she said softly, almost to the mug. It isn't serious, but he's fast. I need to slow him down. No one turned their head. We gave her space to begin or not. She did not continue. She pressed fingertips to the table edge and tapped a private drum once. Then she stood and went to shower with the eucalyptus bundle making the room green. Late morning, a message from Lee arrived. I keep thinking about your notes. I forgot one thing. If you must look at a mirror at night, look from beside it, never from in front. If you stand in front, you will feel like something is missing for a day or two. It will pass, but it is heavy. I sent back a thank you. I told her we understood. I walked around our rooms with small tasks, wiped the counters, straightened the pile of mail, tucked a loose thread back into the living room rug. The quiet held. At noon, Harper's phone vibrated. She looked, frowned on instinct, and then smoothed her face. My mom, she said. She wants to visit next month. She will bring soup in a cooler because she thinks kitchens are not real if she has not used them. Let her, Jess said. The house will like soup. Harper smiled. Maybe. We took turns on laundry. I sat at the kitchen table with a notebook and copied our rules onto a clean page. Closet rests at 1 inch. Pantry dark after 10. Back door kept dry. Lemon in daylight. No mirrors at 1:13. Look from beside if you forget. Bottle on table. Listen before doing. I pinned the page to the cork strip by the calendar, not as a warning, but as a kindness to visitors who did not yet know how to move through our air. By late afternoon, the sky had that flat silver that makes streetlights look early. The doorbell rang. Not a day for visitors, but the ring felt human, not the house. Alan stood on the porch with a small bag and his steady smile. Spare weather strip, he said. Always good to have one in a drawer. I was nearby. We invited him in. He took his shoes off without being asked. He set the strip on the counter and looked at the closet. He looked at the sweater-covered mirror without comment. His eyes read the room like a map, and then folded the map and put it away. You get those notes, he said, gentle, as if he asked if we got rain. We do, I said. They come when the place wants to show you something and does not want to say it out loud, he said. Happens more when the air dries out. I don't know why. He touched the door frame with an open palm. He did not push. He did not lean. He just let his hand feel old wood. You're keeping the inch, he said. That's good. Before he left, he fetched a coin from his pocket and set it on the table, heads up. A smooth quarter with a year none of us had been born in. For the bottle, he said, do not put it inside. Let it sit. It might like the shine. When he stepped back into his shoes, he paused. You all sleep all right? Mostly, Jess said. He nodded. Mostly is pretty good. Evening laid its quiet blanket. We felt like people who had been told by a calm uncle that a difficult thing had a name. That helps. At 10, I tucked the mirror back under the bed and drew the sweater over it again. I stood beside the dresser and looked at my own face in the small black rectangle of my phone, then turned it face down. Curtains closed, lamps low, walk light, pantry dark, all the little acts. At 1:05 I was awake, not anxious, ready. I listened to the walls as you listen to a friend tell a long story. The refrigerator hummed. A car eased through the cross street with tires on wet leaves. Somewhere a drawer closed. At 1:13 the two notes found the house. The second carried a small echo, a faint twin, as if someone answered from farther away. I stayed in bed and watched the line of my door. a darker dark in the room. The closet in the hall held its inch. I could tell by the thin slice of nothing along its edge. The bottle sat in my mind rather than my eyes, and I pictured the quarter beside it, catching starlight and making it round. Then the mirror under my bed rasped. Soft fabric moved with it, not enough to slide, enough to say it remembered me. I turned my face toward the wall and counted my breath. A soft tap came at the door, one only. Then quiet. The tap had become a way to say hello without making a demand. Morning brought a new square on the rug by my threshold. Not pushed under the closet. Brought straight to me. The slow hand again. If you look, stand beside. If you speak, keep it kind. I carried it to the table. Harper read and pressed her lips together. Jess traced the line with a finger above the paper, not touching. "We can do that," she said. I set the quarter Alan had left next to the bottle as he had asked. The bottle did not move. The quarter made the lemon ring look like a small sun. It felt right. We ate toast and eggs and left the house tidy. Jess headed to the wellness desk. Harper to lab. I had 2 classes and a stack of reading. Mallory reappeared in a blue sweater that looked new and borrowed at the same time. She tied her hair up, untied it, tied it again. She did not bring up the person she had mentioned. She kissed my cheek for luck. Her eyes had a shimmer under them that daylight could not hide. After classes, I came home first. The house smelled like rain again. A paper sat under the quarter. The coin had not moved. The note was a circle of words written around a small drawn keyhole. Not for the pantry. Bring to the old door. Which old door? I did not know. The basement had 2. The back had one with a locked bulkhead. The front had one we used daily. A small thrill ran through me, and I held it still so it would not spill into fear. I waited for the others. We do that now, without saying it. We open new doors as 4. Harper and Jess arrived together with bags in their hands and wet hair from a light drizzle. They shook rain from sleeves, saw my face, and knew. We read the circle and looked at each other. "Old door," I said. Jess walked to the hall and pointed without thinking. "The closet. This one is the oldest wooden door in the house," she said. "The back is newer. The basement bulkhead is steel." We stared at the inch. "Not at night," Harper said. "Now is not night," I said, and checked the clock. 6:40. Sky still wide enough to help. I lifted the bottle. It felt heavier than clear water should feel. Cool through my skin. The quarter stayed on the table. We stood together in front of the closet and watched our hands like they were tools. Jess had the lemon slice. Harper had the log and a pen to write the moment down. I had the bottle. Mallory had her palms open. "Ready?" I asked. We opened the door to its inch and then another half inch. The air behind it sighed. No cold, no smell. Just a small stream of the house moving through. I set the bottle just inside, on the floorboard that gave by a hair. It did not wobble. The clear coin at the bottom trembled once and went still. We let it sit, counted to 10, then 20. The lemon scent lingered. A sound came from inside the wall, not glass, not wood. A low, smooth murmur, like wind on pipe, like someone humming a scale through their teeth. We closed the door back to its inch. The quarter on the table had turned, tails up. None of us had touched it. Jess wrote in the log as if taking vital signs. 6:44 p.m. bottle placed just beyond threshold of closet. Brief tone from inside wall. Door returned to 1 inch. Quarter turned. We cooked pasta and tried to pretend the house had not just written a line of music. We ate, we cleaned as we went. We dried our hands on the same towel because small kinships make the bigger one easier. Night folded over the street. The porch light felt warmer than usual. We dimmed the living room lamp and watched the house get quiet. "Sleep," Harper said like a gentle order. "Sleep," Jess echoed. "Stay," Mallory said to the air, and I could not tell who she meant. I curled into bed with the sweater still over the mirror. I slept for an hour, woke once, slept again. The hours arranged themselves neatly like books on a shelf. At 1:13, the whistle did not arrive on time. A pause lived in its place. The pause grew to a full minute. I sat up. Then, 2 notes, lower than usual, from inside the closet and deeper in the house at once. The sound felt older, like an instrument with wood browned by time. I stood beside the dresser, careful not to stand in front of any glass. My door was open the smallest bit. In the hall, a ribbon of pale slipped under the closet, not bright, just a suggestion. A second ribbon, thinner, passed under my door and stopped at my toes. Paper, folded once. I picked it up. The slow hand wrote a name I knew, and 4 plain words. For Mallory. "Look kindly." I held the note and knew the hour wanted a choice. I could keep it. I could wait until morning. I could decide for her. I walked to her door and tapped 1, 2, the way the house had taught us. A soft answer came. I slid the paper under. She opened, hair loose, eyes wet from a sleep that had tried and failed to wash out the day. "For you," I said, "only if you want it." She unfolded it and read. Her mouth trembled, then set. She nodded and stood beside me in the hall. We did not face the mirror. We stood to the side and let the closet show us what it would. Light breathed under the door, the smallest line. Mallory closed her eyes. The 2 notes came again, softer now, almost human in their timing. She opened her eyes and looked from the side. Her face changed in a slow way, relief first, then a sting, then something like gratitude. "I see my grandmother," she whispered, not her face, her way of standing. We did not reach. We did not speak. We let her have it. We kept kindness between glass and dark, like a hand you cannot see holding the space apart. The light faded. The notes fell quiet. The bottle on the other side of the door made one quiet click as the liquid settled. We stood a little longer. Then we went back to our rooms without ceremony. At dawn, the bottle on the threshold held a new pale thread, curled like a comma, and a fresh note waited by the fruit bowl. "One more brings it home." The note on the bowl said, "One more brings it home," and the bottle on the threshold held a single pale thread, curled like a comma that waited for its sentence. Who do you think the last one should be, and why? Tell me in the comments, and share where you're listening from and the time on your clock. Morning gave us small courage. The house smelled like toast and eucalyptus. Rain had rinsed the night and left the alley bright. We stood in the kitchen with coffee and the new note, pretending it was just another slip from a polite landlord. Jess copied the line into the log. "One more brings it home." She drew a tiny house next to it without meaning to, then went pink and hid the pen behind the salt. "The bottle has 1 thread," I said. "Like it is waiting for someone," Harper said. We let the sentence hang there. My eyes went to Mallory. She hugged her mug with both hands and stared at the closet. Not the inch, the wood. Her face was quiet in a careful way. "It was for me last night," she said. "I think the next one is not mine." Jess tapped the page with her nail. Home could be a place, or a feeling, or a person. Harper read the note again. She smoothed it flat with her palm. "We do not guess. We listen." We went about the day with the bottle on the threshold, just inside, as the note had asked. Glass on old wood, clear coin at the bottom. The single thread caught the window light and held it like a hair on skin. Harper had lab in the afternoon. Jess worked the wellness desk and promised to bring home tea bags. I had a reading shift in the library, shelving returns in the back where the light is soft. When I came up for air, I bought a lemon and a handful of stamps, small errands that feel like care. Just after 4, my phone buzzed. A message from Lee. If the note said one more, try the person who keeps the rules. The house likes people who carry keys. I looked at the screen until the words softened into the shape of what I already knew. I typed a thank you and a small heart and tucked the phone away. At 6, we were all home. Jess set tea on the table in a neat fan, every tag facing the same direction. Harper took off her shoes and set them side by side with the laces tucked in. Mallory placed her phone face down and did not touch it again. We ate simple food, rice, greens, eggs with salt. We did dishes in small pairs and swapped midway so no one stood alone too long. The house hummed under our voices in a way that felt like a low chord. When we cleared the table, the quarter that Alan had left sat heads up again. None of us had touched it. The lemon ring was faint but still there, like a line you can trace without pressing hard. We stood by the closet because that is what the hour wanted. The last one should be you, Jess said to Harper. You keep the map. Harper did not nod. She did not refuse. She looked at the inch and the wood and the old paint where hands had lived. She pressed the heel of her hand to the door like she was feeling a forehead. Okay, she said. If the house is kind, it will be kind. We agreed on daylight. We had learned that light is a friend here. It was almost gone, but not yet. I lifted the bottle and held it, while Harper went to wash her hands like a nurse before a simple thing. She dried them and shook her fingers once to let nerves fall to the floor. She stood beside the door, not in front. Jess held the lemon slice to the rim, just enough scent to mark the space, not enough to flood it. Mallory had the log open and the pen ready, even though she was the one who teased the log the most. We opened the door to its 1.5 inches. The air behind it breathed. No chill, no heat, just the feeling of a room adjusting its sweater. I set the bottle on the first floorboard, the one that gave by a hair. The clear coin at the bottom trembled once. The single thread lifted and fell, not a motion, a decision. Harper closed her eyes. Not prayer, not superstition. A pause. She opened them and looked from the side, the way the house had taught us. For a second, nothing changed. Then the sound came, low and plain. 2 notes, a little lower than night, shaped by wood and pipe and memory. The second arrived late, as if someone had exhaled after a long shift. Harper's face moved in a slow way that I will not try to gild. Relief, then softness, then a small ache that did not want a witness. She lifted a hand from her side and hovered it over the bottle without touching glass. The thread rose a finger's width and curled like a small hook. Jess wrote in the log with careful strokes. 6:21 p.m., bottle at threshold. 2 notes. Harper looks from the side. Thread lifts. We stood without talking until the moment felt done. Harper stepped back. I closed the door to its inch, gentle. The house relaxed, a long exhale through walls. In the kitchen glow, the bottle looked no different. The thread still curled at the bottom, a comma waiting. We went about the rest of the evening like people who had been given a short letter and had read it twice. We turned on the living room lamp. We shared the new tea and decided which bag tasted like grass. We folded laundry without speaking and passed socks to each other like soft messages. At 10, we started the old ritual. Pantry dark, lamps low, mirrors tucked away, curtains drawn, back door checked, bowl dry. Jess set the quarter heads up by the bottle, a little coin sun to keep it company. She pressed her thumb to the ring of lemon like a seal on a letter. Good night, she told the table, and did not look silly when she said it. I slept quick. The kind of sleep the body earns by doing small, honest things. I woke once to a distant train horn and counted 3 slow seconds after it faded, then fell again. At 1:10, I sat without the alarm. The house was ready before me. The air had that not quite silent feel you get when a concert hall waits for the lights to dim. At 1:13, the two notes arrived. Soft, familiar. The second was so close to the first, it felt like a hand on a shoulder. Light breathed under the closet door. Very faint. Not a beam. Not a blade. The kind of presence you sense more than see. A low sound followed from inside the wall, as if someone turned a page and stopped to listen before reading. I stayed in my doorway. I did not look into glass. I watched the line of the door. The inch held. The bottle made the small click that happens when liquid touches its own echo. Then a gentle tap came at my door. 1, 2. I opened and found a square of paper centered on the rug. The slow hand wrote 2 lines. "Thank you. Home is a circle." I turned the paper in my hands. I felt the circle of the lemon ring under my fingertips by memory. I felt the quarter's edge. I felt the inch the way you learn a friend's stride. In the morning, the bottle looked the same, clear, single thread. The quarter had turned tails again. The lemon ring was brighter, as if kind attention leaves a mark. We made pancakes because Harper found a recipe in her textbook margin where someone had written it years ago. We ate slowly and let the kitchen be a kitchen and not a place for rules. "Do we think that was the last one?" Jess asked. "The note said 1 more brings it home," I said. "Maybe home is not finished. Maybe it loops." Harper smiled into her coffee. "That sounds like this street." I checked my phone and found a message from Lee. The line said, "Circle is good. If you get that word, you will sleep better afterwards. Do not close it all the way yet. Let it rest in its inch for 3 nights." I read the message to them. Jess underlined circle in the log and drew another tiny house, this one with a door drawn as an open bracket. She looked sheepish and did not stop. The day ran clean. I took the long way home after class to see our house from the corner. The porch light looked soft even in daylight, the way some faces look kind even when they are still. On the sidewalk I met Alan, who had come to fix a neighbor's latch. He tipped his cap and said, "You all look lighter." I did not ask how he could tell. Just before dusk, I found a letter in the mailbox with no return address, only our street, and a name I did not know. Inside, a single sentence in the same slow hand. "There is a second old door." I showed them at dinner. Jess pointed to the cellar bulkhead on the side yard. "Steel," she said. "Newer than everything else." "The basement has a door at the bottom of the stairs," I said. "The one that sticks when it rains." We went quiet. The basement at night had the weight of a place we had politely avoided. We had work to do there. Alan had looked at the sweep, not the steps. We had not asked him to. "We do not go down there after dark," Harper said. "We do not," I said, and meant it. We wrote the sentence in the log and added a time. We would look in daylight. We would bring lemon. We would bring a flashlight with a gentle beam. We would keep the inch upstairs. Evening made the windows mirrors. We turned lamps lower and checked that our own mirrors were face down. We were careful without being cowards. That is a line worth walking. At 11:30, while we folded towels, the back door clicked the soft way it clicks when wood remembers rain. The bowl stayed dry. The sweep held. Still, we all looked at it and smiled like you do when a toddler stirs in sleep and settles again. Midnight rose and passed without the house asking anything from us. I read 2 pages with my knees up. Jess learned a chord change and kept the sound inside her fingers so it did not touch the air. Harper drew a small diagram of the hinge in the log because drawing helps her think. Mallory went outside to breathe and came back with hair that smelled like night. At 1:13, the notes came and left like a small bird that trusts a window not to be closed. I slept deep after that. The next day we kept our plan. We packed lemon, a flashlight, and patience. We waited for noon, then waited another hour, because waiting had become part of our posture. When the light felt good, we opened the door to the basement. The stairs smelled like old wood and laundry soap. The air was cool but not unfriendly. We moved as four. Jess held the lemon. Harper had the flashlight and let the beam ride the steps, not the walls, so the dark did not feel hunted. I carried the bottle because it felt like part of the house now, and because my hands shook less if they had work. At the bottom, the second old door waited. Not steel, not new, wood with old paint that had learned to stay. The knob was smooth from years of use. The latch had a tiny chip on the edge that matched the one upstairs. It was family. We stood side by side. We looked from the side, not straight on. We did not find mirrors. We found our breath. Harper touched the latch. It hesitated. Then it let her. The door opened an inch by itself and stopped in a way that made us smile without planning to. Inside, not a room. A narrow chase between walls with a slat floor and a feeling like the house's throat. Air moved the way it moves over a bottle lip. I set the bottle on the slat. The clear coin quivered once and went still. The single thread curled and then lifted the smallest measure, as if greeting kin. We listened. No whistle, no glass. Only the smallest sound of wind running down a line. Jess pressed the lemon slice to the sill. The scent made the wood feel young. Harper lowered the beam until it did not shine. It simply allowed. We closed the door to its inch and climbed back up. We left the basement as we found it, except for the lemon print on wood and the way our steps sounded kinder on the stairs. At the top, a square of paper waited on the hall rug. We had not heard a knock. The slow hand had written 3 lines, equal and plain. 3 nights. Inch and inch. Do not close to prove it. Bring the bottle when you hear the third. We looked at each other and knew the calendar had written itself. We wrote it in the log anyway. Dates, times. Inch upstairs and inch down. Bottle returns when the hour asks. No mirrors. The first night arrived gentle. The notes came and left. We slept. The second came with a little rain and the scent of laundry soap from a neighbor. The notes came from upstairs and downstairs together, a kind of call and answer that did not need words. We slept. The third came with a low wind that touched the eaves. We were already awake, not nervous, just present. At 1:13, the house gave the 2 notes from above, and then the answer from below arrived with a third tone folded between them, so small you could miss it if you were not listening, like a person listens for a name on a busy platform. The note followed on the floor by my toes, a single word in the slow hand. Now. We moved together, 4 people in sock feet. We did not speak. We lifted the bottle and carried it to the basement with our heads slightly bowed, like you do when you do not want a sleeping bird to notice you. At the second old door, we opened to its inch. Air flowed up and met our faces like a cool cloth. I set the bottle on the slat. The clear coin lifted, rose along the glass in a slow line until it reached the mouth. It did not spill. It held like a held breath. Then it settled back as if it had learned something and did not need to show it. The third tone lived in the space for one long heartbeat. We closed the door to its inch and climbed. The house exhaled. The floor felt warm. The bowl by the back door sat dry. The quarter had turned heads again. The lemon ring looked complete, not brighter, just resolved. We sat on the floor in the hall because chairs were too formal for what had just happened. Harper looked at us one by one, like a nurse counting breaths. "Home is a circle," she said, reading from the earlier note, and this time the words did not feel like an idea. They felt like a map. We went to bed. We slept. Just before dawn, a soft sound woke me. One gentle tap at my door. I opened to find a final square of paper resting on the rug. The slow hand had written a sentence that made my throat hot. You may close it when you choose, and for the first time the question belonged to us. I set the note on the table and looked at the closet. The inch held steady. The bottle on the threshold reflected a small shape that was not mine, waiting to see what kindness we would choose. The house had given us permission. You may close it when you choose. For the first time, the inch belonged to us. If a place you live asked you for a final kindness, would you grant it now or wait? Tell me your choice in the comments and share where you're listening from and the time on your clock. We did not decide at breakfast. The note sat between the sugar bowl and the lemon ring while we ate pancakes left from yesterday's batter. Jess traced the edge of the paper without touching it. Harper held her mug in both hands, not drinking. Mallory stared at the closet, then at the floor, then at nothing. You may close it, I read again, when you choose. It did not say must, Harper said. Choice is the whole sentence. Then we should earn the choice, Jess said, not rush. No one argued. We had learned slow from this house. We put the note in the log with a clean strip of tape, centered it like a title, and added one line beneath in neat print. We will know when. Morning brought errands. Harper left first, her bag neat, her hair tied, her nerve quiet. Jess followed with a to-go cup and a small smile she used on strangers to soften their day. I stayed back to clean the stove and air the rooms while the sun had a say. Mallory drifted in and out, stopping once to press her cheek to the door jamb as if feeling a pulse. I wiped the table with lemon and set the quarter back to heads. Little rituals are easier than big decisions. By noon, the house felt light again. I took a walk around the block to look at it from the outside like we do when we need perspective. The roofline sat straight. The porch had that patient slant it always had. The maple on the corner had dropped half its leaves in a circle, as if agreeing with the note. On the way back, I saw Alan across the street coming off a neighbor's stoop. He lifted his hand. I crossed to him. You look rested, he said. That bodes well. I told him only what the note allowed, that we had a choice now. He nodded like someone hearing a birthday. Doors like company, he said. They will let you close them if you promise to visit. What would you do? I would wait one night, he said, then ask the room. Houses answer people who have carried buckets and slept through storms under their roofs. He tipped his cap. You're the buckets and storms kind. Back inside, the air had that faint, clean scent we had come to call lemon, even when there was no lemon in the room. I checked the bottle on the threshold. Clear coin, single thread. The glass threw a small oval of light on the wood that moved when the sun did. On the table, the quarter had not turned. It stayed with the face up, old and calm. Jess came home first, set tea on the counter, and leaned her hip against the sink. I kept hearing the notes at work, she said, almost sheepish. Not in the room. In my chest. Like a memory that hums when it wants to be noticed. She rubbed the heel of her hand against her sternum and laughed at herself. Harper followed with soup from her mother in a cooler that might have carried a heart across a state line. We lined the containers on the counter, labeled them with a marker, and made space in the freezer like we were making space in the week. The house likes soup, we said, and meant it. Evening drew the light down the hall. We stood at the closet together the way people stand at a grave before the first shovel. Not grief, gravity. Tomorrow, Harper said. Tonight we listen. We kept the old routines. Pantry dark, back door checked, mirrors covered. The list on the cork strip watched us without weight. We dimmed the living room lamp and let the window glass show only a soft room. At 1:10, I woke like someone called my name. At 1:13, the notes arrived. 2 clear tones. The second so near the first it felt like a hand on a shoulder. The light under the closet did not come. The bottle did not click. The air moved through the inch like breath through teeth. I stayed in the doorway and spoke one quiet sentence. We will decide in daylight. The house held still. Then the refrigerator hummed, and the night turned back into a room where people sleep. I did. In the morning, I brewed coffee and set 4 mugs on the table before anyone else woke. When the others joined me, I slid the note to the center. We did not speak for a minute. Birds on the wire outside made a thin song that sounded like pencil on paper. Today, Jess said. Harper nodded once. We close and see. I want to see too, Mallory said, then shook her head. Not with eyes, with what I felt last night. It already felt quiet. We agreed to tidy first. It felt right to put the house in order before asking it to change. We made beds. We folded blankets. We cleared the sink until the basin showed its old enamel. Jess wiped the mirror in the bathroom and then draped the sweater over it for the last time on this side of the choice. At noon, light filled the hall. Dust moved like slow snow and then settled. We stood before the door. Rules first, Harper said. We have learned enough to keep. Pantry dark after 10. Lemon in daylight. No mirrors at 1:13. Look from beside. Back door dry. Kindness before doubt. She breathed. If we close, we do not forget. She pressed her palm flat to the wood. Jess touched the knob with 2 fingers, then lifted them away. Mallory folded the note and placed it on the floor like an offering. Ready? I asked. We pushed. The latch caught. The inch thinned to none. The click was small and complete. Nothing jolted. No draft turned mean. The kitchen did not groan. The floor did not protest. The house took the change like a person takes a hand and squeezes once. We stood in the quiet and waited for our breath to match the new shape of the room. It did. A feeling like exhale slid along the baseboards. Jess wrote in the log, 12:06 p.m. Closet closed by choice. House steady. Air even. We cooked soup at noon because soup feels like a house's way of approving. We ate slow, the way you eat after finishing a task that required patience rather than strength. Harper smiled with her mouth in her eyes. Mallory told a short story about a dog she saw on the bus with a head too big for its paws, and made us laugh on purpose. The bottle on the threshold caught a thin shine and held it like a thought. Afternoon passed without riddles. I answered emails. Jess read. Harper caught a nap with her forearm over her eyes. Mallory braided and unbraided her hair twice, and then tucked it into a clean knot like she was leaving for a shift that did not exist. At dusk, I took the long flashlight and went to the basement to check the second old door. It sat closed, the inch gone there too. I pressed my palm to the wood. Warm, not from heat, from attention. When I came up, a paper waited on the first stair. I raised it in the light. The slow hand had written a single word, round as a bowl. Thanks. I placed it on the table next to the quarter and felt a small tightness behind my eyes I would call relief if I were braver. We settled into the evening, lamps low, music quiet. We did not speak about the hour to come. It would speak for itself. At 1:08, I was awake, not worried, simply present. I put one hand on the wall and felt the faint thrum of pipes. At 1:13, the notes came. They were smaller, as if the house had cupped them, not far, not near, just placed. The second tone met the first and sat with it. No pause from below, no light, only a steady space. The bottle clicked once, as glass does in cooling air. Then quiet. I lay back down and thought of the word circle. The map the house had drawn inside us felt round and gentle. Sleep found me. In the morning, a new paper rested by the fruit bowl. The ink felt a shade lighter, as if someone had written with the last of a pen. Now you keep it. Harper tapped the page with her nail. Not a test, she said, almost to herself. A handover. We felt the change in small ways. Jess folded the dish towels and set them a little straighter. I refilled the salt without waiting for it to run out. Mallory moved with an ease I had not seen in weeks. Whatever looked for her in the dark had found a place to sit. "Do we still hear it?" Jess asked. "Probably," I said, "but maybe the sound will be ours when it comes." Late afternoon, a message arrived from Lee. "I dreamed of the house last night. The note about choosing is the last one we ever got. After that, we heard the whistle only when we needed it, not when the clock did. It showed up like a reminder to open windows or be kind to ourselves. I hope yours is the same." I read the words aloud. No one spoke for a moment. You do not talk over someone wishing you kindness. Evening came easy. We did not cover mirrors. We did not turn them to the wall. We left them in place with the lamps low and our bodies between glass and dark, not hiding, just present. I slept until a sound brought me awake, not the whistle. A soft knock at the front door, 3 patient taps. I checked the clock, 12:42. We gathered in the hall like people do when the door sounds at a strange hour. Harper moved first, steady as always. She checked the peephole and turned her head to us. "A woman," she whispered. "My age, wearing a yellow sweater. Alone." She opened the door with the chain still on. "Can we help you?" The woman's voice was small and clear. "I lived here long ago," she said. "I know that is odd. I just walked by to see the porch. I heard something." Harper looked back at us. I nodded. Jess nodded. Mallory did too, a small lift of chin. Harper took off the chain and opened the door wider. "Come in from the night," she said. "Just a minute." The woman stepped onto the rug and took off her shoes without being told. She looked at the hall like a person looks at an aisle where she once found a book she loved. Gentle, a little shy. "I'm Lee," she said, and then laughed at herself. "I mean, I'm the one who writes to you." It felt strange to keep sending notes and never see the door again. We smiled the kind of smile you give a cousin you have messaged for months and just now met. Jess offered tea she did not have to make. Lee shook her head and pointed toward the closet. "You chose," she said, not a question. "We did," I said. She looked at the edge where paint meets paint. "I worried I would not like it closed," she said. "But it feels like when a book ends the page where it should, and not a chapter later." She turned toward us and tucked hair behind her ear. "Does it still, you know?" "It sings when it wants to," I said softly. "Less like a clock now. More like a friend who keeps odd hours." Lee breathed out and let her shoulders drop. "Good." She put her palm on the door the way Harper does and left it there a second. "Thank you for listening." "We tried. You did better." "We had your map," Jess said. Lee glanced at the bottle on the threshold and the quarter on the table and smiled. "You kept the small things," she said. "That is all a house ever asks." We stood together in the hall without speaking. The clock in the living room ticked once, then again. On the sidewalk, a car eased past and the wet street sang a little. Lee put her shoes back on. "I should go," she said. "My partner waits a block away. He worries," she smiled. "He always worried here and never could tell me why." She opened the door, then paused and looked over her shoulder. "If you hear the whistle on a day when you feel too tired to be gentle, to each other or to yourselves, open a window and let it pass through you. That is all it ever asked from us in the end." "Will you come back?" Mallory asked, surprising herself. Lee considered. "I might walk past again and listen from the sidewalk," she said. "The house will tell me if I should knock." She stepped out into the night with soft feet. Harper closed the door with a care that matched the hour. We stood in the quiet kitchen and let the moment sit. I reached to the table and turned the quarter to heads. It felt right. We slept. Sometime after 2, long past the hour when we had trained our ears, a sound brushed the room. Not 2 notes, a single low tone, the length of a slow inhale. It did not ask for attention. It offered it. I lay in the dark and felt something in me line up with it like 2 edges meeting at last. A pressure eased between my eyes. A small ache I had carried since the first week softened until it was not an ache, only a memory. Morning found the house bright. The hydrangea by the steps had one last flower that had no right to be there and stayed anyway. The kitchen smelled like citrus and toast. The bottle on the threshold was empty at last, clear as sky. We made a plan to mark the choice in small ways. Jess drew a circle on the calendar 3 days from now and wrote soup in the middle. Harper set a reminder to oil the hinges next month. I set a note to buy lemons in pairs instead of single. Mallory took the sweater off the bathroom mirror and folded it with care. Midday, a last paper waited by the fruit bowl. The slow hand, steadier than the night before, had written 6 plain words. Listen for footsteps that keep kindness. We taped it into the log. We did not ask when. The hour would tell us. Late afternoon, while I sorted laundry, footsteps did arrive. Soft, careful, keeping the right boards quiet. They stopped in the hall. A knuckle tapped my door once, then twice. I opened. Mallory stood there in her coat with the blue sweater under it and a small bag on her shoulder. She met my eyes and let one tear run and did not wipe it. "I'm going to my cousin's for a week," she said. "No drama. Just time that does not loop right now." I held her. She let herself be held. "You'll come back," I said. She nodded. "I want to come back. I want to like the inch when I do." We helped her pack small, drove her across town in an old car that smelled like eucalyptus from a sprig left on the dash. We watched her climb the stairs to a different porch and turned to wave. On the way home, Jess said nothing, then everything in one line. Sometimes kindness is leaving a door the way someone can open it again. We went back to Alder and stood in the hall. The closet sat closed, quiet as a held hand. The bottle caught the last of the day and turned it into a soft coin on the wood. At 1:13 that night, I did not wake. I slept through the hour into a morning that tasted like a fresh start. The inch was ours now, open or closed by our hands. The house had given us that, and something else too, the sound of footsteps that knew how to move through it without taking anything away. Just before sunrise, a final paper slid under my door. The slow hand had written 4 small words that changed the week. "There is one visitor coming." The last note slid under my door before sunrise. "There is one visitor coming." By noon, every choice we had earned felt smaller. If your house warned you a visitor was coming, would you tidy, hide, or invite them in? Tell me what you'd do and where you're listening from right now. We did not panic. We made coffee. Harper set 4 mugs on the table and aligned the handles like compass points. Jess stood by the sink with a towel over her shoulder, eyes on the hall as if the door might speak before the bell did. I read the note again. The paper felt warmer than the others, as if it had come through someone's hands a minute ago. "A visitor," Harper said, "not visitors." "One person," Jess said. "Which one matters?" We left the closet closed. The bottle sat on the threshold by choice, clear now, empty in a way that did not feel like loss. The quarter lay heads up beside the lemon ring. The house had asked for care and we had given it. Today it had a request of its own. At 11, the doorbell rang. Not a soft night knock, a clear chime. We looked at each other. Harper moved first. On the porch stood our landlord in a neat jacket and a woman with a clipboard. The woman wore a badge on a lanyard that said City Utilities. She had kind eyes and a practical ponytail. Behind them, Alan waited with his canvas bag. "Morning," the landlord said. "Inspection day. I called last week. I should have reminded you." Harper let them in. Shoes off for Alan. A small nod from the inspector when she saw the rack by the door and matched us. "I'm Devika," she said to all of us, voice steady. "Everyone calls me Dev. Annual check. I need to see lines, meters, access panels, basement door, any room with a gas appliance. Should be quick. Basement. Access panels." The words nudged our rules like a shoulder. I felt a small hollow open under my ribs that used to be fear and had learned patience. We would show her what she asked for. We would ask for small things in return. Dev moved through the kitchen with the ease of someone who lives in many kitchens for 15 minutes a day. She checked the stove, crouched to see the line behind it, ran a finger along the wall and lifted it to the light. No soot. No smell. She made a note without drama. "Closet?" she asked, already looking toward it. "Old chases sometimes hide valves." Harper glanced at me. The choice was ours now. I nodded. She opened the door. Not the inch. All the way. Daylight caught the top shelf. Old paint met old wood without complaint. Dev shone a small flashlight along the interior. She found the slat where we had felt a draft and listened with her ear near it. A minute passed. She smiled. "Good air," she said. "We like that in old places. Keeps things honest." Alan stood back with his bag closed. He watched the room the way a pianist watches the space over the keys, present, hands still. "Basement," Dev said. We led them to the stairs. The air below smelled like laundry, soap, and wood. Dev's flashlight moved along steps and walls in a calm arc. At the bottom, she stopped at the second old door and placed her palm on the paint like we do without thinking. "This sticks in winter?" she asked. "A little," I said. "We can ease that," Alan murmured, already seeing hinges in his head. Dev opened it to an inch. She did not push. She listened. A small breath moved through and wrapped around us without chill. She smiled again, simple and true. "Your house breathes," she said. "Good." She checked the meter. She checked the shutoff. She checked one more panel we did not know we had, and tightened a small valve a quarter turn. Then she looked at us, not at the clipboard. "Anyone call in a smell lately?" she asked. "No," Jess said. "Good," Dev said. "Keep lemon around if you like it. Old wood likes clean. You will think I'm being silly, but smell is the first alarm most people actually notice." She wrote something on the top sheet, tore it neatly, and handed it to Harper. "Pass check, small adjustment at main, seasonal note. You are fine." The landlord exhaled like someone had held a glass door for him. Alan touched the door frame by habit. Dev looked once more at the hall. "Whatever you are doing," she said, "keep doing it. Old places listen when people are kind." We walked them to the porch. Sun made a shallow pool on the steps. The maple on the corner let go of 3 leaves at once and sent them tumbling like bright fish. Dev put on her shoes and looked back in. "One more thing," she said. "If you hear a low tone at night, like a held note, it is probably the main line in the street when usage drops. Do not worry. It is just the city sleeping." We smiled. We understood it differently, but the shape was the same. When the door shut, the house seemed to sit up straight. I realized I'd been bracing for a rule to be taken from us. None had. The visitor had been the right one. We cleaned by habit after guests leave. Harper wiped the counter with a thin circle of lemon. Jess cleared the shoe rack and straightened it as if gratitude had a shape. I set the quarter back to heads, only to see it already there. We could have relaxed. We did not fully. The day had taken some of our quiet and given it back. That kind of exchange leaves a ringing. At 2, another knock came. 2 quick taps. Alan again, alone now. "Door will swell when the rain comes next week," he said, lifting the bag. I want you to be ready, not surprised." He planed a whisper from the basement latch and oiled the hinge until the leaf drank it. He did the same upstairs. His rag smelled like lemon and something older. Before he left, he set a small brass hook on the table. "In case you ever want the inch back," he said. "It holds a door where you ask it." "You can leave it closed," I said. "For now." "For now," he repeated. "Not a test, only a match." Evening tried to be ordinary. We cooked rice and eggs and ate in the living room because the light was soft there. Mallory told us a story about a woman on the bus who carried an empty cake box very carefully, and how strangers gave her space as if the box were full of something important. We laughed in the right places and saved the quiet parts for ourselves. By 10, our little map of habits had moved to its night positions. Pantry dark, back door checked, mirrors left where they were because we had learned how to stand near them. The closet was closed by choice, calm as a held hand. "I should sleep," Jess said, rubbing her temples. "I keep hearing the inspection in my head like notes. Valve, meter, valve." "Sleep," Harper said, softer than a whisper. We went to our rooms. I read 3 pages and remembered none of them. My eyes kept finding the same line and losing it again. I put the book down. At 1:10, I sat up, calm, present, ready to hear what the hour might offer. At 1:13, the 2 notes did not arrive. The quiet that came instead was not empty. It had pressure in it, like the air before rain. I held my breath without meaning to. The refrigerator cycle ended. No click followed. The house held still. A single sound arrived from the basement, not the old call and answer. A low tone, long, almost warm, the length of a slow inhale. It felt more like a yes than a word. I stepped into the hall. Jess's door opened the width of her palm. Harper's did the same. We did not speak. The tone held for a count of 5 and slid away, not drowned, not cut short, simply finished. When it left, the house let go of a breath. The closet did not offer light. The bottle did not click. The quarter stayed where it lay. I slept again, but not deep. My dreams sat near the surface, legs in the water, faces turned to the wind. When I woke, gray had gathered at the windows. In the kitchen, a new note waited by the fruit bowl. The slow hand wrote, "Today will be a day for patience. Keep the door as you chose. When you feel like you need to do something, do the smallest thing." We laughed, soft, the kind of laugh people make when advice meets the exact shape of a day they did not want to name. Harper set the note in the log and underlined smallest. Jess underlined patience. I underlined keep. 2 hours later, patience became work. The landlord texted, "Prospective tenant, basement storage only, quick look at noon. I should have asked sooner. Sorry, short notice." I read it aloud. We looked at each other. The second old door waited. The inch was gone there by our choice. A stranger would want it open. A stranger would stand in the wrong place without knowing. "We can guide them," Jess said. "We can stand beside." Harper nodded. "I will do the talking." We tidied nothing more than necessary. We placed the bottle on the table, not the threshold. The quarter stayed where it liked. I set a lemon on the cutting board, not sliced, just there. At noon, the doorbell. A young man with a canvas cap and a key on a lanyard. He looked more nervous than we did. "I'm just here to see the space for boxes," he said. "Seasonal stuff. My girlfriend knits, and I do not know where to put winter." "Welcome," Harper said, steady as always. "Shoes off. Down this way." We took him to the basement and stood like bookends while he looked, one on each side of the door. He reached for the knob. Harper set her hand lightly on the wood. "It sticks," she said. "Let me." She opened to an inch. Air moved. He frowned for a second and then smiled. "Oh," he said. "Cool air. It smells like old library. That is nice. He looked left and right, measured with his eyes, and nodded. "This is perfect. Boxes will be happy. We will not bother anything." He did not ask to step closer. He did not stand in front of it. He looked from the side, stole our habit without knowing. I felt something in me unclench. "You have a good place," he said. "It feels awake." We smiled. He meant it well. He left his contact on a small square and said to call if we wanted a neighbor who shovels. The landlord, for once, had found a fit. When he left, the house felt taller again, not proud, aligned. Afternoon sat with us a while. I graded 3 short essays and gave kind points for clear sentences. Jess brewed tea and put a slice of lemon in each mug without asking, which is how this house defines love. Harper took a nap and woke looking softer. Mallory sent us a photo from her cousin's place. A thick blanket on a couch, 2 mugs, a cat's back, mid-stretch. She wrote, "Just breathing." We breathed too. At dusk, the air decided on rain and then changed its mind. The porch light came on and caught 3 moths that did not mind a change in plan. We cooked rice and turned the flame low and ate by the window. The maple sent 1 leaf down early and another late. At 10, lamps low, pantry dark, mirrors left alone. We kept our list without needing to read it. The hour came toward us. I did not set an alarm. I sat with my breath and counted it down. At 1:13, the 2 notes returned, small even. A moment later, the low tone from below joined them like a bass line. The house had not gone silent. It had turned itself. Now the sound came as a kindness, not a test. It passed through us and did not ask for anything new. I closed my eyes and let it move across my chest the way sun moves across a wall, slow and unforced. When it finished, the refrigerator clicked on. The world resumed. Morning placed another paper by the fruit bowl. The slow hand was steady again. "Thank you for keeping small promises." Jess read it twice and smoothed it with her palm. "We can do that," she said. We tried to keep the day simple. We cleaned the stove until it looked cheerful. Harper wrote a list for groceries and left it on the counter like a flag. I walked around the block and looked at our house from every angle, then walked back and stood on our own porch as if I were a stranger deciding if I should knock. At 4, my phone buzzed. A message from Lee. "I keep thinking about your visitor note. Did they come? Did you feel helpless or held?" She added a tiny drawing of a door with a circle around it. "Held," I wrote back, and asked to be small. "Good," she replied. Then, after a pause, "If the house ever goes silent at the hour and stays silent for 3 nights, it means it wants you to rest. Do not seek it. It will find you when it needs to." I told the others. Harper nodded. Jess underlined rest in the log. We liked rules that asked for gentleness. Evening slid down. We dimmed lights and checked locks by habit, not fear. We left the closet closed and did not feel like we were denying it. We were keeping a promise we had made to ourselves with its permission. At 1:13, I did not wake. I slept finally from the edge of the hour all the way through it. When morning poured in, I felt different in a way I could not name at first. Lighter where the ribs meet, clearer behind the eyes. The note under my door returned me to the day. 4 words in the slow hand. "The visitor is yours." I carried it to the table and set it next to the quarter and the lemon. The house had kept its warning vague until it mattered. Now it had handed me the shape. "Mine?" I said to the room. The room did not answer. It had given me enough. Harper poured coffee and did not ask a question that would push. Jess put a cup by my hand and waited. I did not drink. "I know who," I said at last. "I think I do." Harper nodded. "Do you want us here when they knock?" "Yes," I said, "please." We cleaned nothing. We did not make the house look better than it was. We let it be itself, with the lemon ring in the bottle and the closed door, and the quiet line of our shoes by the mat. At noon, a knock. Not the bell, not the soft tap, a polite, steady sound that carried distance with it, like footsteps from a street I had not walked in years. I opened the door and saw a face I had once loved in a different life. Older, gentler, holding a small paper bag. "I brought soup," she said. I was nearby. I stepped back to let her in, and the house gave a low tone that felt like someone humming to steady their hands. The soup steamed between us, filling the kitchen with thyme and something sweeter, but the low tone from the basement held underneath it, steady as a drum. No one was striking. Have you ever had a visitor from your past arrive unannounced? Share your story in the comments. I'd love to know how you felt in that first moment. Her name was Claire. Once we shared a season where every corner of campus felt lit by her laugh. We drifted apart after one winter break. No fight, just different hours, different friends. The kind of ending you do not mark because you do not think it is an ending. Now she stood in our doorway with a bag that smelled like soup and patience. "Your house feels taller than it looks," she said, stepping inside. Jess offered her slippers without words. Harper moved a chair for her at the table. The soup came out in a small glass jar, wrapped in a towel still warm from her hands. I realized I was holding my breath. The house was not. It exhaled around us, subtle, like curtains shifting when windows are closed. Claire looked at the quarter, the bottle, the lemon on the board. She tilted her head as if these belonged on every kitchen table. "Do you want me to leave this here?" she asked. "Or should I serve it?" "Here," I said. "We'll share." We found bowls and spoons. The soup was simple, carrots, potatoes, herbs, but it tasted like it had waited for us. Even Harper, who never eats broth without rice, finished every drop. The note from the morning lay on the table where Claire could see it. "The visitor is yours." She read it without asking, her eyes moving slow. She folded her hands. "I'm sorry if this feels like intruding. I kept thinking about the porch where we used to sit and talk about books we hadn't read. I wanted to see where you are now." The house did not object. The tone below rose once, softer than before, and faded. Jess opened the log and wrote, "Claire brought soup." The house agreed. That night, we did not follow the map exactly. The bottle stayed on the counter, not the table. The lemon was cut in quarters and floated in glasses of water. The closet stayed closed, but Harper placed the brass hook nearby as if offering choice. At 1:13, the notes came. 3 this time, not 2. Higher, quicker, almost bright. We stood in the hall together, Claire too, though she did not understand the hour yet. Her eyes widened. "Do you hear that?" "Yes," Harper said. "What is it?" "The house," Jess said simply. Claire did not laugh. She nodded once, like a secret had been shared in her language. We slept. Morning brought a final note, folded smaller than the rest. We opened it together. It said, "The kindness you keep will keep you." Harper underlined kindness. Jess underlined keep. I folded it back and placed it on the pile with the others. Claire brushed her hand against the stack as if warming her palm. "I think I'll stay the day," she said, "if that's all right." It was. The house said nothing against it. The hours said nothing more. But the silence felt like rest, not warning. We understood. We were being allowed to choose. That night, when I passed the closet, the inch had returned, and the door was waiting, not for the house, but for me. The inch of darkness at the closet door no longer hummed like a question. It waited, opened just enough to say, "This choice is yours alone." If a door in your home stood ajar every night at the same time, would you close it, open it, or leave it be? Tell me in the comments, and share where you're listening from tonight. I did not call Harper or Jess. I did not ask Claire, who was still awake in the living room, leafing through a book she had not read in years. I stood before the closet with my hand at my side and listened. No notes, no tones, just the house holding still, as if it had placed its tools down to let me work. I placed my palm against the door. The inch widened a breath, not a push, just an acknowledgement. My pulse matched it. The brass hook lay on the table behind me. I could have used it to hold the door shut. Instead, I leaned it against the frame like a bookmark, a promise I might return. I opened the door. Inside was only what we had always seen: shelves with folded sheets, the faint trace of cedar, a box of winter scarves, yet in the center, balanced on the floorboards, was the bottle, full again, clear. I lifted it, cool, heavier than it should be. I set it on the threshold where it had lived before. The inch of space sighed shut, not harsh, not final, like a book closing at the end of a chapter. The air settled. A low tone drifted up from the basement, warm even, a sound that carried no warning. Jess opened her door and stood barefoot in the hall. Harper appeared, steady as always. Claire looked up from the couch, her eyes soft, her bowl of soup empty. We stood together while the house played its last note. It did not ask for anything more. Morning brought the final slip of paper, tucked not under a door, but placed carefully on the kitchen table, folded into a square. In the same slow hand, "You kept what was given. That is enough." Harper read it aloud. Jess underlined enough. I folded it once more and set it atop the stack. We did not need more rules. We had learned them already. Life resumed, but not as it had been. We still cleaned with lemon, still checked locks by habit, still left mirrors where they felt right. We still wrote small things in the log, not for fear, but for memory. Claire came often, sometimes with soup, sometimes with nothing but her voice. She never asked again about the notes, but she always touched the pile when she walked past, as if to say thank you. Mallory wrote once more from her cousin's place. "I feel lighter here. Tell the house thank you." We did, in the quiet way you thank something that has no mouth to answer. Seasons shifted. Rain came, then thaw, then the smell of lilacs in a yard that had felt too thin for flowers. We let time move the way water does, not rushed, not stalled. And the house stayed awake, but not restless. Sometimes at night, the low tone returned, just once, like a reminder that kindness still lived in the walls. We would smile in our rooms, not frightened, only steadied. The closet never forced itself open again. The inch remained when we wanted it. We closed it when we chose. The bottle remained full. The quarter always landed heads up. One evening, months later, Harper said quietly over tea, "It was never about the hour. It was about us." Jess nodded. The house just showed us how to listen. We all fell silent then, not because we were afraid, but because there was nothing else to add. Sometimes I still wake at 1:13, not every night, not with alarm, but with calm, as if the house wants me to notice that the quiet is whole. I lie there and breathe, and I remember. The inch of space, the bottle on the threshold, the notes that came like questions, and the answer we gave, small kindnesses kept. It is enough. The house does not speak anymore. It does not need to. Every choice we make inside it is the last note, still ringing.